Yeah. We may as well just.
It's my face.
As long as I can sell it. Yeah. No.
No.
That's mine. All right,
What are you doing?
it's 9:01. We're gonna start right on time, which is actually a minute late. Hey, Patty. All righty, how is everybody? We're gonna have to get the energy up. Yeah, there we go. All right, thank you guys so much for coming. We are starting Ignite. So the way that this is gonna run, like today is really about, look at that guy. God,
Beard game.
I know. Yours is better than mine. It's taking like 4 weeks. So the way that we're going to do this, this is the first time back in person, fully back in person for Ignite, which is so exciting. One of the best parts of our culture and the best parts of honestly doing in-person trainings is the collaboration that we get to take part in by all being together. Right, everybody's in the same boat. Everybody is here because they want to learn, get better, and build the foundational pieces of the real estate business. Is that true? Awesome. So what I would ask is, number one, I want to set the groundwork here. Number one, this is a safe place. Everybody is in the same space. Everybody is here because they want to learn and they want to get better. Just said that. So let's respect that everybody may be or may not know what we know about a particular subject and want to learn it. So they're going to ask questions. I want this space to be a space where we can all ask whatever questions are on our mind, because I guarantee you there is no stupid questions. Well, there are kind of, but most of the time there aren't. Right?
We will just, and we won't call you out.
And we won't call you out on
We'll just talk about it after class.
Exactly. But
Kidding.
we're all here to get better, and that's really important to me. So this is a non-judgmental space. This is a space where we can all grow together. Second, at breaks, and we're probably going to go about an hour and then take a quick 5-minute break. And then we'll come back and hit the second session. And but at the break, say hello, introduce yourself. Any questions there? Awesome. So here's what also we're going to do. We're going to set the tone for the entire 2-week training class. So Ignite is all about the foundations of real estate. It's all about learning, okay, what do I have to put in place so that I can build my business and hit my goals to where I want to go, right? And what do I have to do to create a roadmap? I want to start with one simple model though, and then we're going to get into it. Where's the, we have, oh, here we go. So I'm going to draw it because I don't know how to put it up there. You're going to hear something called a big Y at Keller Williams. And I'm just going to be honest. I write it to write it, not write it to read it. So my handwriting's horrible, but we're going to work through it. So a big why is really why are we doing what we're doing? What are we trying to create and why? What gets us up in the morning, right? Because I'm going to be totally honest, as you're building a real estate business, it can feel pretty lonely. It can feel pretty difficult, right? From the standpoint of I'm banging my head against the wall and I'm not hitting the results that I want to hit. Well, we have to go back to what is it that it's like. What was that page?
So I just realized that the video recording has literally the side of my head. So sorry. So the people who go back to review it, that's what they're going to get.
Hopefully
It's a training company. We're fine.
Yeah, we're digitally based physically.
Before we do really quickly, before we jump into this, can we do intros?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It's all right. That's why we teach together.
I just jump right into it. He slows me down.
Right.
It's kind of exhausting. So
Because we are going to spend 2 weeks together, right? You guys are going to get to know each other. This will be part of one of the many tribes you'll become part of. So I'd love to hear from everyone who you are, how long you've been in the business, that sort of thing. I know you know everything. So.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure,
first?
I'll do that. So I'm Joseph Klosik. I've met most of you. I'm the broker in charge and operating principal here. Been in real estate since it'll be 20 years in November. Been with Keller Williams the whole time. I was a buyer's agent. I've been an individual agent. My wife and I have a small team that we run. I've been in leadership on and off of Keller Williams since when I first joined as a team leader with Delisha years ago. So I love the training aspect of it. One of my more prouder things that I do with Keller Williams is teach. I'm on the Keller Williams University Master Faculty list, which I love. So I get the opportunity to teach with the region, internationally, that sort of thing. So Ignite for us has been a huge help. Lynn and I rewrote our business back when they first launched Ignite, which was 2000 and I think 11, 12, 13, something like that. So whether or not you've been in the business brand new or been in the business for years, it's a foundational class. You're going to get the systems and tools and everything that you need. So anywho, my office is right there. Share the office with Tiffany. So now it's with Kristen, and bounce back and forth physically between here and Mount Pleasant, but always available should you guys need anything. So that's me.
I'm so excited.
Tim Ludford, brand new. He's got 20 years. I think I got 20 days.
Appreciate you pointing that part out. Tim.
What else do you want?
What'd you do before this?
Oh gosh, so my career's bounced all around. I started off in social services, doing social work. Quickly learned that you don't make any money doing that, and to move up in that field, you get separated from the reason that you get into that field, because you can't move up in that field unless you become a paper pusher, where you're basically making life decisions for people you've never met, and that just didn't feel right to me. Started bartending on the side to make extra money, and quickly learned that you make a hell of a lot more money as a bartender than you do as doing social work, which is kind of skewed from a societal standpoint. And then somehow fell into the world of retail. Worked as a trainer for several years. Have kind of done everything in that industry from top to bottom. Kind of like my reason for getting into real estate, I got into the real estate game as an owner very late in life. I tried in my 20s and just didn't have a great real estate agent that I was working with, and it didn't seem possible, like something that I could do. Her advice to me when I was trying to figure out how to make it happen was, she knew my parents, was, well, just have your parents give you the money. And it's like, well, that's kind of not an option. So kind of moved away from that. Tried to get in my 30s again, had an agent that just wasn't really listening to me, was focused on what my pre-approval was, but not what I was comfortable with in terms of me and my life and actually buying the property. So gave up on that. And then in my 40s, I went, I should probably really figure this out. So my husband and I were kind of bouncing around. I lived in like 13 states. Charleston off and on for like 30 years, but 12 other states in between all of that. We ended up moving to Las Vegas because Las Vegas has incredibly affordable home prices. The market's usually pretty good there. It goes up and down. If you get at the right time, you can actually do pretty well. So went there, thought, okay, I'm going to try working with an agent again. Found an agent recommended from a friend of mine. The agent actually turned out to be the owner of our favorite happy hour bar, which was very convenient. And he just sat down with us and he was like, okay, let's sit down and have a conversation. Like, these are the ins and outs. This is everything you need to know, whether you go with me or not, whether you use me or not. If you want to work with someone else, I just want you to go into this armed with all the knowledge that you need. Worked really well. Ended up converting 2 properties in Vegas. I don't like the word flip because we didn't really flip when we lived in them, improved them, moved on. The last one I was probably the most proud of because I did kind of the unthinkable. I removed a bedroom and a closet and still made a lot of money. It was important for the flow of that house. It was because it basically opened up the front of the house to the back of the house, leading to the pool and the party area. So it just kind of improved the property. But I really learned, I was like, wow, this is for a long time as someone who was like a diehard renter, I thought ownership was going to chain me down. And I quickly realized that ownership provided an enormous amount of freedom. And it changed my entire financial structure and changed everything in my life. It changed really how I felt about money and how I valued money. And really, for the first time, sadly, in my 40s, understood what money was. But then it allowed me to do what I wanted to do for a long time, which was move back to Charleston, which had it not been for getting into that, jumping into that and like experiencing buying, selling and making money off it, I wouldn't be here now. Came back to Charleston, worked with an incredible Keller Williams agent who found me my home that I currently live in. Woke up one day after all my years of training and leadership in retail and went, what the hell am I doing? I don't feel any passion for this. It's hard for me to do something I'm not crazy about and that I'm not passionate about and I'm not really driven to do. And I think when you're at that point, you realize you're no good for anyone. So I was like, what's next for me? And I was like, this is what I want to do. It's something I've wanted to do for several years now, and I just finally mustered the courage, spent a year saving money and positioning myself so I could do it, and I made the leap.
Awesome.
So that's that. And that's me.
Awesome. Welcome
What's
aboard.
going on?
That's awesome. So one of the things that they teach you to do well as an instructor that I failed on is setting expectations. So we do have 2 weeks that we are going to be spending together, so we'll get a chance to get to know each other. So this is going to be a Reader's Digest version. So today was Tim's day. We'll continue to have other days. That's my fault, not yours. I want to make sure that. No, it's not. No, 100%. No, yeah, that's a great story. That was like, oh my God, we're gonna add a few more hours because I want to hear everybody's. But what we're gonna do, we'll keep going each day. It is a safe space, and I messed it up, and I'm calling myself out. All right, so we'll just keep doing that. We'll make it quick. Go ahead. Thank you very much.
I won't say anything tomorrow.
No, that's not what I mean. Y'all won't. Trust me, you'll be thankful when we get till 12 o'clock and you're like, hey, let's go. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my name's John Flo, and I just like I'm very new into real estate. It's been in my family forever. My grandfather does it out in California for Keller Williams, and my stepdad does it as well. So it's kind of family business. Did retail my entire life, and decided to jump into the family business after being told numerous times I would be very good at this. So as you can tell, I'm a huge Marvel fan. If you have any questions about the MCU or Marvel,
I totally saw.
huge Marvel fan. Plan to use my nerddom and stuff like that with real estate. I also currently work in the video game industry. So until this can be my full-time job.
Nice. Winnie.
Hi, I'm Winnie Rogers, and I flipped a couple houses with my dad, and the agent that we used asked me to go get my license because she had too many leads. And then come to find out, I was like, your leads are okay, but like I know people, so I should do this on my own. And I found Keller Williams, and here I'm also your director of growth and the president of KWYP. I'm Patty Stover, and I've been in real estate a few years, and then just found Keller Williams a little over a year ago, May. And so I'm trying to sit in some of their training and all that kind of stuff. And I got interested in real estate as a personal investor. And when I had more time, I homeschooled my kids, and then when they grew up, decided to go into real estate. Buy and sell and also invest in real estate. What's that? 2 weeks now. Still have a life of time.
Nice.
But
Don't tell our broker.
background, huh?
That's great.
Don't tell our broker.
Right, lots of contracts. Right, lots of contracts.
You were supervised yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, that was great. I went with Winnie yesterday to the open house. And it was awesome.
Fantastic.
My background is like hospitality. I worked at Memphis Area Home Builders Association, and then for the last 8 years, I've been doing work with orthodontics.
Mia, ladies first. I don't like the beard.
I'm Mia. I've been in the sales side of this for about a year, but before that was the director of operations for the South Aspen team for about 3 to 4 years. So I did jump into sales and
Excited to have you back.
yeah.
Duncan Bradford, I've been in real estate about over 5 years now, 6 years. Started out with Keller Williams over Mount Pleasant, took a detour in my career, detour led me back to fence, so back with Keller Williams. Sling tacos in my free time just because I enjoy it. Started a nonprofit this year, just trying to get my hands in as much stuff as I possibly can. So you'll see me around.
Awesome. Welcome. How about you, Delisha? Who are you?
Well, I got That's
Try to
I
figure it
might need the second version. Sorry. My name is Delisha. I have been licensed for 15 years in Charleston area. I first got into real estate because I was told that I should get a real job. And 15 years later, I'm still here. I am your director of career development. So we are going to be spending a good amount of time together. And I look forward to getting to know each and every one of you.
Go ahead.
I'm Allison Allen. I've been doing real estate for, I guess, a year and a half now. I have about a handful of transactions under my belt, but I need a big kick in the butt. So I decided to take Ignite again to actually get my goal this year. So
Nice.
that's awesome.
Love
That's
that.
awesome. Yeah.
I know, good move.
Hi, I'm Polly, brand new, just left teaching, decided to, finally go for it. It's kind of scary doing it, like not knowing what's to come and possibly paychecks and all that stuff, but, wanted to grow more and have more expectations for myself and, do more in life than, I want to say like just help others, like help kids, but, help kids in other ways. Because you guys know how that education is, and it's really hard to make money, so I'm excited.
Well, last but not least, I'm Eric Romanowski, first day as well here. I'm coming from admissions and recruiting over at a local school here. First day as well. I'm excited to do this. Before this, I've bought and sold some properties here in Charleston, so have kind of a background, but nothing formally, kind of just did it on my own. So kind of excited to get some actual training here with everybody and looking forward to it.
Awesome.
And, yeah, let's get the ball rolling.
Thank you. Appreciate
Quick
it.
and fast.
All right.
Mark your calendar, the 21st at 2 p.m. We're going to talk about profit share day.
Let's do it.
Right, thanks.
Got that
And so
right.
you guys have, and I'll let you go. I know you're giving me the look over there. So you guys have in front of you the student manual. It's really more of a reference for which you can take notes or on which you can take notes. We're going to try to tell you when to reference that as much as possible. Just know a lot of this is intended to be more of a discussion for you guys to write the notes down on here. This will be for the first 2 hours of it. This is kind of the structure will be this way for the next 2 weeks. And then at 11, you guys are actually going to get into some activity, right? So Delisha is going to work with you either with certain, it'll be different every day, specific with scripts that you may want to look at, your database, working on things like that. So that's kind of what the format looks like. So that's all I got.
I love it. So, and the last piece that he just mentioned, that 11 to 12 piece, the activities, you're not going to get as much out of Ignite as possible if you don't do the activities. It's about learning, and we're going to talk real quick about this, but it's about learning and then implementing, right? We can sit here, there's a concept in KW called being learning based, right? Everybody in this room is clearly learning based. The key to being learning based is not just learning for learning's sake, but learning for doing's sake, right? We're here so that we can learn what we need so that we can go and implement at a higher level and achieve our goals, like Allison mentioned, right? So that's the big piece to this. And if I go back to this concept of the big why, you'll see it in your manual. It's on page, I think 5. 4, 3, or potentially 2. But it's in there. And you're going to hear this a lot at KW. I want to make a couple of quick points about it. The big why is why you're getting up in the morning. It's what you're doing. It's why you're pushing through some of the obstacles that you're going to face. The reason it's so important that this is clear in your head is because that's what's going to be your North Star. That's what's going to keep you pushing when things get real tough. And there's a model called kind of like the business breakthrough model. And it's this idea of a big why powering our thinking. We're going to refer to this a lot, but powering our thinking, and our thinking is always going to power our behavior. And our behavior, that's going to power our habits. One of the things about Ignite is all designed to create and teach, or rather teach us and then help us create the habits necessary to hit bigger goals and to live a bigger life. Right? So after we have habits, the habits that we generate are going to create relationships around us. There's a concept, some people have probably heard it, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time around, right? And nobody tells you this part, but most of the time, the 5 people you're trying to be around are usually running away from you as fast as they can toward 5 other people, right? That's not a bad thing, just keeps us running. And it also forces us to continue to play this circle again, because the relationships that we're around are going to create our results. And if we don't like the results that we're getting, we have to go back to our big why, change our thinking, change the behaviors, change our behaviors, which are ultimately going to change our habits. That's going to change the people that are around us, and we're going to change our results. And we're constantly playing this out, right? And it's just this goofy feedback loop. But I wanted to start here because it all starts with our big why. So say, well, great. So I understand the big why. Now I'm going to start to change my thinking, my behavior, my habits, my relationships, and my results. Now what? So on page, I think it's on page, and I would because for time, I'm a very fast individual. I'm not very patient, but I would always take a couple of minutes and I would write down, I think it's on page 5, right under where it says like, why am I doing this? Right? To write down all the reasons that you're in real estate. Like Tim, you talked about some relationships that you had with prior real estate agents. So I'm sure that one of the reasons you're in real estate is to make that experience a little bit different for other people that are going to be in your world, right? Remembering that as we struggle to find people to help is really, really important. So I would jot those things down. I think it's on page 6 and it looks like this: what successful agents do every day. You see this? Here it is. What successful agents do every day. This is probably one of the most important pieces to the puzzle. Whatever is this?
Page 4 in our book.
Page 4, thank you. You're going to see this a lot. See this line. This is the real estate transaction. One of the best things about Ignite, one of the best things I think about Keller Williams is that everything that is complex, we simplify. Right? That's where success is found. We want to complicate everything because we're very intelligent, talented individuals. But breaking them down to the simple is where we're going to find new results and really be able to implement. Right? So if I look at this line, I've got lead generation, follow-up, and transaction management. It's almost identical to this concept. So who can read real quick? Let's go through. What are 1, 2, 3, and 4 of growing your business?
Lead generate for buyers and sellers.
So find buyers and sellers. Number 2.
Excel listing presentation. and get listings.
Oh, that's impressive. That's very, very important. Go get listings, right? What's number 3?
Make buyer presentations and get listings.
Okay, make sure that we're presenting the buyers as well. And then number 4? Awesome. Massively important.
Why?
See, what you tell me why?
Well, I mean, if you're going to go out and meet with buyers and sellers, you have about 30 seconds to build your validity for them to listen to you even more, right? Or pay attention. They may listen to you, right? So the more you know about the market, and the reason we kind of harp on this is this will be a struggle that we'll see with Ignite is one of the assignments will be to go preview properties. And you're like, well, I don't really have time to do that. Get into that habit, right? Because if you hear Steve, I always talk about Stephen Cooley, who runs basically the number 2 now, the borderline team in the region, top 10 in the world, a giant team in Fort Mill. Every day he wakes up. Now it's a little different for him. His preview is knowing the market, but he knows the market like the back of his hand. So when he goes and does 2 and 3, he immediately establishes his validity because of his knowledge of the market.
Huge. And see everything here on the right side: market, seller listings, show buyers houses, negotiate contracts, transaction management, vendor management, setting goals, compliance, attending training, and manage money. Nothing on the right side of this happens if you don't do the left side. It's just like this line. Nothing here. And oh, by the way, this is way easier. Like all this stuff over here, with all due respect, is way easier than doing these things. And what is that going to create?
Money.
Profit. And it's going to create money and profit when we do over here, because then we're going to have the opportunity to do this. And the reason we don't do this and we want to go and keep on doing this is because it's easier. So it's going to create this this goofy dichotomy, this almost resistance to doing the things that we really need to do, right? We're gonna make excuses. And that's why we go back to our big why constantly. I had and some have heard this analogy about 100 times, but I had a mentor at Morgan Stanley. My prior life, I was at Morgan Stanley, built a wealth management business. I dialed the phone 300 dials a day. It's not to say you should do that. The point of the story was I said to Mike, my mentor at the time, still in my life today, I said, Mike, I don't want to dial the phone anymore. I'm done with cold calling. He said, sounds good. And I said, well, I only have 4 clients. I need more money to manage. And he said, well, then you better get back on the phone. And his whole point is that if you don't have any leads and you don't have any clients, right, then there's no reason to focus here, right? I was joking with Delisha one day and we're like, well, should we create our listing packet? Should we do all the marketing and make sure our business cards are really nice? Well, probably at one point, but who are you going to give them to if you don't have any leads? So this cutting out time for this piece, for growing your business every day, is what's going to create the habits that you need necessary to do all the fun stuff and help people like Carl mentioned, right? So growing your business. Let's keep on moving. You can push the button. Okay. There's a quote, 2 more. This. Nothing else matters. Nothing else about your business will have as big an impact on it as the number of leads you have. Gary Keller. Anybody ever heard of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book? Yes, thank you. You're going to hear us quote that book constantly, right? This quote comes right from that book. The size of our business is in direct correlation to the size of our database. And the size of our database is in direct correlation to the amount of leads coming into it, right? So nothing else matters about our business without leads coming into it. And the whole point of Ignite, especially this session, is about understanding where there already are leads, right? We operate on a simple premise. People do business with people they know, love, and trust, right? Said easier, people do business with people they like. So there are already individuals that like you. I know for me, it's kind of, I can't believe that, but there are. So where do you think they are? In your phone. Yeah. Do me a favor, pull up your contacts list. Go to your phone and click contacts. Duncan has like 3 because he doesn't. Scroll all the way if you have an iPhone, I don't know about an Android, but if you have an iPhone, scroll all the way to the bottom of contacts. All the way at the bottom, there's a number there. Who wants to give me the number?
507.
507. Now do 507, multiply that by 0.06. Times 0.06. 507 times 0.06.
30.442.
That sounds right. So what that number represents is the amount of individuals that most likely could potentially buy, sell, or invest in real estate. 507 individuals. So the whole idea of that simple exercise is to understand they're out there. And then I'm a big gap guy. Like, what's my gap? Where am I? Where do I want to go? What's my gap? How do I feel about it? What am I going to do about it? Nothing, not good, not bad. If I don't like the result that I'm getting, what am I going to do about it? There's a gap. So I would look and I'd say, how many homes have I closed so far this year? How many homes are potentially just sitting in my telephone, right? In my database, my sphere, right? And what's the gap and what am I going to do to close that gap? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I think on page 7, there's a little exercise.
The sphere, the
Yeah.
memory jogger.
Yeah. So why don't we take 2 minutes and go through that?
Hey, Vince, you have, I think we all have different packets.
So look on the front of it. There will be element, it should say Spark 1 with the title below it.
I've got Fuel Your Career. You got prospect.
Oh,
Okay, so you have the second one. Yeah, you just need the first one.
Yeah, me and you. know.
The prospect is for the second half of today. Each one of those will be a spark session. It'll look like this.
You should.
Yeah. So really quickly, what that looks like is the spark and then the elemental. So for today, the spark, what Vince is going through is like the why behind we're doing the lead gen. And then what we'll move into the second part is then the elementals of like the process of doing it. All right. We basically, when we created it, we wanted to split it into 2 different sections like this to make it as incredibly complicated as we could. So when you're trying to follow along, like it just makes it that much harder and stresses you out. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's working so far.
If you push through this, you're
If you push through this, you're gonna be super prepared. It's like boot camp, basically, but much different.
You're just trying to weed people.
I was talking about simplicity. Right? I want to make it as complicated as possible.
Throw that out.
Yeah. So on page 7, there's a couple of questions there. Take 2 minutes and start to answer them for yourselves. And think about your database. Think about, and when I say database, everybody has a database sitting in front of them on that telephone, right? What's one of the most important? What's the most important question on this? On these 3 questions.
The second one.
Hands down. Who does not know you are a real estate agent?
Way more people than I'd like to admit.
100%. What do you think stops us from telling you?
You don't want them to think that we're like asking for something from them.
Okay. What else?
Also, people just forget, like unless you're constantly in front of them. I have people that I've known
Oh,
forever
yeah,
that
that's true.
still like, hey, you're still in real estate, and in my head, it's like, are you freaking kidding me? I didn't know that. That's a failure on my part.
Yeah,
in some way,
100%.
shape, or form. So, and also just as humans, we spend 99% of our time in our head thinking about ourselves. And so while we think that everyone is thinking about us or that we're bugging them, we're not bugging them because they're thinking about other stuff. And that's why putting everyone, getting their information, putting them in command, getting them on smart plans that are just going to be dripping. Because every conversation, you're just planting seeds. You're not bothering them because they will forget. Like people in my family at the holiday, like, hey, are you still blah, blah, blah? It's like, okay, I haven't done that in 15 years, but thank you. So people just don't, they just forget.
Yeah, those are 2 great reasons. Anything else? So people just forget,
They
right?
forget.
We're afraid to ask because we don't want to almost inconvenience them or think that, like, have them feel as if we're asking them for something. What else?
Well, I think in any other business, you don't just go out and go, hey, guess what I do for a living?
Yep.
That's kind of an odd thing to just shout out to people.
Kind of like making it uncomfortable. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the
Yeah.
thing. Being like, not really like a telemarketer, but I mean, that's kind of that feeling you almost give them, I think.
100%. Like, we don't want to be, we don't want to be perceived as salesy.
Yeah.
And I think
That's the
timing
big
is
thing.
everything,
Timing,
which is
100%.
why you have to consistently insist and have to tell them.
Another
That
set
was
of lenses-
gorgeous. That was amazing.
Good job.
But just another set of lenses, what you were saying to view it through is back to what Tim and I think whoever's had a bad agent in the past. We're doing ourselves and our community a disservice, knowing that there are agents that don't do a good job. So we're doing everyone a disservice by not connecting with people and saying, hey, look, whether you're brand new, you've been in the business forever, they need to know that you are in business because you know that you're going to do a better job than 90% of the other agents. Does that make sense?
And I couldn't agree more, right? And that's why it's so important to constantly remember that thinking behavior or thinking habits, relationships, all that, right? Because it starts with our thinking. Most of the things that we're talking about are limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are what's going to stop that. I think it was Henry Ford, it's in here somewhere, but he said, if you believe you can or you can't, you're always right. Right? We always bring that to the forefront. Like we're going to, if we believe we can't do something, my dad used to say that to us all the time. If we believe we can't do something, you're never going to do it, right? And I think changing our thinking around, hey, does anybody care about my clients more than me? For everybody sitting in this room, the answer should be no. Nobody cares about my clients more than me. So inherently, I believe I can help them more than anybody else. So if I was to lead with that thinking, right, is that going to make me salesy? No, it's going to make me care. Sometimes also, we just don't know how to do something. And that's the idea of scripts. That's the idea of sitting in a room like this, where we can mastermind and we can collaborate, think about different ways to have conversations, right? Shortly, you're going to go through an exercise that talks about the Ford model, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. An easy conversation so that people don't think you're salesy, they think that you're learning about that. Because that's what we're starting. That's what we're doing to lead off. So on page, there's a squiggly line. This is a very important squiggly line. I'm going to draw it here because this is also going to be something that we talk about a lot, the squiggly line. Every one of your clients or everybody in your sphere, I see is a squiggly line, right? At the very top here, this is the day that they close on their house. This here is the very next day. And this here is when they purchase another house. Does anybody know, on average, how long between real estate transactions for the average individual?
3 to 5.
Yeah, I think they're saying 3 to 5. It used to be like 5 to 7. I believe that number's coming down. The book here says 8 to 10, right? So apparently nobody really knows, but it's a long time, right? So let's call it 3 to 7 years. Right? Most of the time, something's super, super wrong if they transact on the very next day. That's a real problem. Talk to your broker about that. So
Your other broker.
yeah, right. But what's cool is over those 3 to 7 years, there's a bunch of different things that are going on in that individual's life, right? There's no algorithm that tells you when somebody wins the lottery, correct? What happens the very next day somebody wins the lottery? I know they don't die, but what else do they do?
They buy a house.
They buy a house. I haven't got that one.
Here's the guy. Just make a note here, don't piss Duncan off. All right, that's good.
Well, I think it's statistically, it's like 3 to 5 years after you win the lottery, most people will die.
Yeah.
Because all their friends come out of the woodwork. And
Yeah, and they're trained. Oh.
35, don't win the lottery.
Don't win the lottery.
I
Well,
don't know.
I'm gonna be careful about using this analogy again. Because that's only one transaction. So my point is, if you're not having conversations with those individuals from the day after they close with you to the next time they're going to transact, you're gonna miss a lot in here, right? And I put this, I consider this the cultivate phase of the relationship, right? And this here is the transact phase. Here's the key. You cannot do number 2 without earning the opportunity, and the only way you earn the opportunity is through number 1, right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So again, back to this simple premise, people do business with people they like. If I'm not leveraging tools, right, that we're gonna talk about in command, leveraging ways to follow up with these individuals over over all this time frame, right? And I'm not gonna earn the opportunity to transact because they may forget about me, right? They may no longer trust me. They found somebody else that was following up with them and actually cared about them and didn't just care about the transaction. There were about 6 million homes that were sold in the United States last year, right? 9 times out of 10, real estate agents focus on that 6 million and getting their share of it, right? What if I was to flip that on its head and say there were 85 million homeowners last year, and I just focused on creating a relationship with 85 million homeowners? Will I get my share of the 6 million transactions if I just focus on creating and cultivating relationships with the 85 million? Yeah, the answer is yes, a resounding absolute yes.
It's math.
Right? It's math, and you're going after the bigger number, right? And you're not coming across as salesy, you're coming across as, hey, I actually want to help you. Right? So what we're talking about here is, what do we have to do through all of these different pieces, all of these different stages in that relationship to make sure that I'm following up, make sure I'm having a relationship or creating a relationship with them and understanding where they are. Because on these, maybe right here, they had a buddy that was buying, selling, or investing in real estate. And because you were constantly following up with them, they referred them to you. And then maybe here, they had to relocate, right? Because they got a new job and they moved. Or maybe right here, they got married or had a baby and wanted to do something else. They wanted a new house, right? All of these opportunities will be missed. And this right here, this simple squiggly line is how you take a very transactional business and make it systematic and make it sustainable. It's a very big piece to the puzzle. So what am I doing here to create more relationships and cultivate those relationships over time? It's also called emotional proximity. When you walk into a store, give me a store, like a clothing store. Walmart, Nordstrom Rack. How about Nordstrom Rack? When I walk in, when I walk into Nordstrom Rack, what's the first thing somebody's gonna ask me?
Where's your wife?
It's probably like, yes, number one. Number two, what are they gonna ask?
What are you looking for today?
What'd you say?
Can I help you? Can I help you?
So they know you've escaped.
Yeah, they ask me that too. I was going more with, can I help you? Thank you. You're so helpful, right? Can I help you? What's your response every time?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good. I'm just looking, right? Until I get to the shoe department and find my pair of 11 Nikes, and I need to try some on, right? And I'm going to turn around and I'm going to look at whoever is closest to me, and I'm going to ask them for some help on finding these a pair of 11 Nikes. Here, that's called emotional proximity. I didn't go walk to the front door to ask the lady at the front door whether I could find me a pair of 11 Nikes. I asked whoever was closest to me. I knew they could help me. That's the emotional connection piece. And the proximity piece, they're just closest to me. The whole idea of constantly following up is staying within emotional proximity of all the individuals in your database. Allison, you said you had 507. How difficult, if we understand that creating a relationship, what's the easiest way to create a relationship?
Contact them,
Yeah, how?
call.
Call, like have a conversation like we're having right now.
Yeah.
Now, can you call 507 individuals like,
One day.
yeah, in one day? No, right? And even over 30 days, it's probably a lot of calls, right? But we want to stay, and now calling and having conversations is the #1 way to connect with somebody, right? But we want to do that over each quarter, and we want to do it systematically as to not burn ourselves out, #1. #2, it's other things come up. So we put things in place to communicate with them through systematic automated communication, like smart plans, right? Through our database. And that's allowing us to continue to stay top of mind so that we are in emotional proximity. Does that make sense? Really simple. So with that said, we're going to move to understanding the tools. The whole idea of Keller Williams Tech, I'm not going to go through this too much, but the whole idea of Keller Williams Tech is more circles. It's always squiggly lines and circles. Yeah. So would everybody agree that the real estate world is changing pretty dramatically? And what's the reason for that? It really is. It's simply technology. It's the interconnectedness of the world. Technology is what does the consumer really want? The consumer wants knowledge, right? At the tip of their fingertips, right away, right? And they also want advice and service. A real estate agent is paid for knowledge, advice, and service. I would write those three things down, by the way: knowledge, advice, and service. That's what you're getting paid for. And it comes in the form of continuing to cultivate the relationship and understand what they want and how they want it, right? So you can get them there. But what Keller Williams has done is they've said, all right, so if knowledge, advice, and service is what we're paid for, we need to better connect the consumer to us as the fiduciary, to the resources and the information and the knowledge. So we've created this amazing tool called Command. Notice how the agent is in the middle. The agent uses Command. The agent uses Command as a tool to continue to cultivate and follow up with the consumer. The consumer is connected through the KW app. KW app, it's branded to you as the agent. So each one of you has a Keller Williams app that you can utilize, that you can use and send to all of your consumers so that they go into that app, do some, look at houses, all that good stuff, star them, like them, do whatever they want to do. And on the back end, in Command, you can see what they've clicked on, which is an easy way to then start a relationship, or rather a conversation, saying, hey, Duncan, I saw you clicked on 123 Main Street the other day. What interests you about that house? I want to buy it. Great. Let's get together. If that's the response, go meet them. Drop everything and go meet them, right? And then last, you've got the Market Center with their resources. And Command Market Center is just the back end of the database that connects all of this together. Does this all make sense? Probably doesn't, because it doesn't today, but we'll just keep going.
What is that phrase that you say, like technologically enhanced, what digitally?
Digitally based, physically enhanced. So it is a really good point. So the world as we know it today, COVID has kind of expedited this. The world as we know it is digitally based. Everything happens on this phone, right? We're lost without it. Ever leave the house and be like, oh God, I don't have my phone. Where is it? Right? We're like, it's crazy. We are digitally based, physically enhanced, and that's how our consumer wants to be too. They have knowledge so close right here. Like I can Google it. Literally, that's a verb. It's absurd, right? So we need to think that way for our consumer, because the consumer does want, our clients want to be digitally based. We need to think that way and meet them where they are. Sometimes we try to create something, like we try to get them to where we are. No, that's not going to work. It's pushing a rope. We want to meet them where they are so that we can then understand their needs. And I kind of breezed over it, the Ford script, understand their needs, understand who they are, what they're looking to do, and where they want to go. Like that, what are their dreams? And then we have to be the conduit to that dream, right? We have to be the individual that once we understand that, we show them how they can get what they want, when they want it, faster with us. That's the key. Is literally the key. And it just so happens to be the vehicle that we're playing in, or driving rather, is buying and selling houses, right? They're real estate related business. Write this last question down. What are your real estate related goals this year? What are your real estate related goals this year? On page 10, you'll see the Ford script. Family, how's your family? Occupation, are you still working at, right? Or how's work going? And that's a great question right now, because a lot of the world was disrupted over the last year and a half, and they're still being disrupted, by the way, right? And showing some care and concern and empathy there is really important. Asking about how they're doing, right? And being genuine about it. Not how you doing. Okay, so you want to buy some investment real estate? No, sure. I'm trying to figure out where my next deal is coming from. Imagine if they said that, right? So understanding what's their working like.
Mortified if somebody said that.
It's scary. Are you still enjoying X? Know about what they like to do. It's the recreation. And then lastly, did you ever pursue that X? What are you looking to do this year? Any fun plans? Any vacations planned? Right? Understand what they enjoy doing with their time. What are their dreams? And then lastly, I would finish the conversation with, me ask you, you know that I've been in real estate, and I've been helping a lot of great people. What are your real estate related goals this year? Yeah, I am not an advocate of the question, who do you know who do you know that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Right? Or are you looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? I think it's an absolutely horrible question. It's closed-ended. And what is the answer to that question every time? No. The answer is always no. Duncan, I keep picking on you, sorry. Can you answer the question, what are your real estate related goals this year with no? No, exactly, right? And that's the key. It also opens up the questions around dreams. It shows that you care. It shows that you're not just some other salesman or saleswoman, salesperson. You're here. All those. Do you like that? I've been working on that. So it shows that you care, and that's the key. What are your real estate related goals this year? So, any questions?
For connection, I feel
It
like.
really does.
If you played this last question about dreams the right way, and your intentions are to be in real estate for a long period of time, this is your culmination of when they're gonna buy or they're gonna make the next move. Because it's a military relocation. Hey, listen, I know you guys are coming in town, you're gonna be here for more than 2 years. And if no, well, 2 years, we're gonna need to move again. So you need to keep that culmination time frame. Because they're gonna buy, turn around, buy right again. So it's literally, if you ask the right question and go a little deeper into it, a couple different layers, you're gonna figure out where they're gonna make their next move, and keeping them in your pipeline will help you. So
Be able to predict this.
absolutely,
essentially.
absolutely.
100%. And it's, you have to play the long game. When you do right by people, whether that means a commission check today or not, if you do the right thing, especially if we're going a commission check right now, it will always pay off bigger in the future, almost every time. When you do right by people, that's when you solidify that you actually are genuine about answering and about asking these questions.
And then last thing, we said, you know, anybody looking to buy, sell, or invest, our minds are triggered, and when you say no or ask, do you, we automatically say no. So if you say, who do you know? It actually prompts and triggers the brain to make that other individual actually think of who they may know that's looking to buy, sell. So just that change of the phrase can be a game changer.
Yeah, and it's a much more powerful question. We talk about like why is like the worst start to a question. Unless you're asking like, why is that important to you, right? Other than that, why is an accusatory question, right? And so people are going to automatically 9 times out of 10 respond with some defensive phrase, right? It's going to put them it's going to put them on their heels, right? As compared to a question like who, it's a higher level question. It's a bigger thinking question, right? You're asking about who, you're asking about people in their life. And here's the best part. As you get through this piece and you start to do this, right? If this is a consumer experience that is unmatched, the who, when you ask that who question, they're going to have names for you every time. And you probably won't even have to ask if you do this space at a high enough level based on their expectations of the real estate transaction. Tim isn't going to refer any of the real estate agents that he did business with prior because it was a bad relationship, correct? They didn't care about you or whatever it was that was broken. If they did, he would be the biggest advocate, right? It was the reason that one of the reasons that he's in the business now is to help people not have the experience he did. Imagine if now that's a super powerful why. It's a beautiful thing. So any questions? What are some ahas that we've had? I'm going to finish up over the next 5 minutes. You want to ask something?
Well, I mean, just tailing on what you're saying about Tim, I mean, Delisha put it perfectly. It's almost like now you have that passion to be like, I don't want people to have that experience, right? I want to avoid that for people. And unfortunately, your experience wasn't abnormal, right? I think a lot of people have that. The challenge is sometimes that happens because they tend to work too much on building the business, not running the business. So the customer service sucks, that sort of thing. And it's a bad experience. So it's a good balance.
Well, and conversely, my first good agent that I worked with in Vegas, I took him, 6 that I know of that purchased. I brought him 6 clients.
There you go.
Purchased homes.
So you became a wealth determiner for him because the experience was better.
So there's a really good point there. each transaction is not about that transaction. It is about the multiple transactions that are created from that one relationship. Again, there are 3 questions that I'm asking myself every time I'm building a business, right? Or do I have enough leads coming in? We started the whole conversation about leads, right? Do I have enough leads coming into my business to hit my unit goal to fund my life, right? Number 2, am I following up with those leads with frequency and intensity in an automated way? And number 3, am I creating a consumer experience that is unmatched and creating more leads into my database? By the way, questions 2 and 3, it doesn't matter what the answers to those are until number 1 is a yes. Do I have enough leads coming into my database to hit my unit goal? If there isn't a yes there, then don't even worry about the other 2. But the key, once you get past that and you have enough leads and you're following up with them, and then we're transacting, and looking at those individuals as multiple deals is what's going to create sustainability. 6 deals. So let's just put this into perspective real quick. So say I bought a house for $333,000 and it's a $10,000 commission at 3%, right? So Tim, I'm not going to monetize you here, but you're $10,000, okay? You $10,000 to that real estate agent. But he said he referred 6 other people. What's $10,000 times 6?
That's $60,000.
Duncan, did you use a calculator? No.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
$60,000. $60,000 just from Tim because he appreciated the relationship that he had with that real estate agent and wanted more of his friends to have that same experience. It wasn't that real estate agent just paid $60,000 from one relationship that if he didn't do it the right way, would have only made 10. By the way, everything that we do in this business is about return on your investment. And most of the dollars we invest in this business have at least a 3-to-1 return, meaning for every dollar we spend, we earn 3. That's a 6-to-1 return. That's amazing. Think about, what do I have to do in my business so that I create returns like that and help the amount of people that Tim is talking about, that agent helping? Who do I have to become in order to get referred the way that Tim referred his real estate agent? It's a really big piece to the puzzle. Anything else? I'm passionate about that piece.
Can I just say something about the long game? Over the weekend, I had a client contact me about listing a property that I had listed. It didn't sell, and I was like, man, when was the last time I worked with her? It was 2012. I had a property listed. I think the market was a little wonky. It didn't sell for whatever reason. And honestly, I had not been systematically following up with her, but she did receive probably about 4 touches a year from me. And just from that, 9 years ago. Yes, 9-ish years ago. It's a listing. So it is always about the long game. And even though the property didn't sell the first time, we solidified a relationship. She had a good experience. And then 9 years later, I'm going to list the same property again. So always keep your eye on the prize, whether you know it's going to come back or not.
To add to that too, understand that a lot of times that long game you don't ever hear back from them. We have, and we'll talk about this in the next section, but we have a client in our database that we did not hear back from for years. And it was like every year we're like, should we take them out? Should we take them out? We were leaving them messages, sending them follow-up, yada, yada, and never got back to us. And then all of a sudden it was their coworkers got referred to us. Hey, so-and-so said you were amazing. I was like, oh, well, why don't they tell us that? They don't get back to us, right? And but we were like, and then all of a sudden it was like a coworker, another coworker, a mom, and then they bought again. It ended up being like each time we would have taken that person out, I mean, that would have been probably, just rough estimate of $40,000 delete.
Well, they did tell you they were amazing.
They did, right? But I need information.
You need a lot of that.
But I joke. I do. I joke. But if you
couldn't be more right.
I'm gonna write that down.
Everybody pipe down. I'm still talking. But no, you'll experience that though when you start making a lot of phone calls. You'll be leaving voicemails. I mean, Duncan, you built a big business. I mean, you'll leave voicemails. You'll do all these things, and you'll never hear back. You're like, is this really working? It is.
You also start to make up stories that they hate you.
Correct. Oh, 100%.
I just closed a Seabrook property with people that I had convinced hated me since 2015. And it's so dumb, but that's what we do, so.
Yeah, 100%.
A lot of this is mindset and just getting off your own hamster wheel and just being consistent and systematic, and people are always watching. You might not get the feedback, whether it's social media, whether it's newsletters, farming, whatever your lead generation mechanisms are. It can be isolating and it can be a little bit lonely, but just stay the course because people are watching, and you'd be surprised on a daily basis.
Yeah. It's a huge piece to the puzzle, right? 90% of this is mindset. Motivation management happens between the ears. And what we have to do every day is sometimes we go back and we listen to that voice in our head. We all have it, right? Mine's nuts. Like, it's absolutely nuts. I was reading a book. There's a book called The Untethered Soul. It's kind of an odd book. It's a phenomenal book by some guy named Michael Fisher, I think his name is. One of the things they talk about in there is us making up stories. They talked about how you're waiting for your wife to come home and she's not picking up her phone, right? And you're sitting there and it's like 6 o'clock, definitely late. So now all of a sudden your head goes probably two places. Number one, she's either dead in a ditch somewhere because she got in a car crash and she's not picking up her phone. Number two, maybe she's with some other guy. This is bad. Now all of a sudden our head's going crazy. We're in this bad place. But here's what's funny. Now all of a sudden she comes walking in the door with balloons and champagne. She had just been out with coworkers because she got that promotion she'd been wanting to get. And her phone's been ringing off the hook and she was talking to her mom on the way home. And she's excited. What do? Give her a big hug, say, hey, so good to see you. Congratulations. Five seconds ago, we were going off the rails. But now we figured out that, hey, and then what are we going to do? We're going to go back to that voice in our head for more advice later. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy, right? Motivation management happens between the ears.
So true. I mean, it's like,
It's ridiculous. And then we're going to go get advice from that voice.
Yeah.
So we talked about that, the thinking, and we talked about relationships. It's very important to put the right people around you too, right? That you can give a quick call to if somebody else doesn't pick up the phone. So it's something to think about. We do that with our clients, right? Oh, they didn't pick up. I haven't talked to them in months. I've been leaving all these voicemails. I've been texting them. Hope everything's okay. They hate me. And then all of a sudden they call you and say, hey, I'm so sorry. I've been super busy. And unfortunately, I had this, that, and the other thing going on, but I want to list my $1.5 million house on Sullivan's. Can you help me? Well, 2 seconds ago, I thought you hated me, but I guess you don't. I'd love to help. No, it's between our ears. It's the goofiest thing. That's why we talk so much about like getting better, personal growth, mindset. If we can keep this okay and keep this focused on why we're getting up every day, everything else is going to come together. I promise. Right? There's 6 reasons, and I would write these down too. There's 6 reasons that we quit. 6 reasons we quit. I think about this a lot. Not going to quit because I don't really like to quit, but there are 6 reasons. Number 1, it's overwhelm, and they're not in any order. Overwhelm. Number 2, results. We didn't get the results we want. Number 3, negative outside influences. Number 4, negative inside influences.
That your self-talk that you talk about.
Yeah, that's that self-talk. Yep, like negative thoughts, limiting beliefs. Whatever number I'm on, I guess that'd be 5. Is boredom. And lastly, you've got loneliness. So I'm just going to get real here for a second. There's not a problem with any of this, right? Everybody's going to be susceptible to one or all of the things on that list. I'd get real with yourself and identify the top 2 or 3. I definitely identify the top 1. I'll give a quick story when I know which ones I'm susceptible to, and it's the 2 on the bottom of the list that I just shared, loneliness and boredom. When I started as the team leader about 2 years ago, I have a really good friend in here. His name is Trent Second. And we, one day, we were building this business, and I remember talking to Trent, and I said, man, this sucks. Like, I'm exhausted. I'm really working a lot. And dude, it's like super lonely. And it just really sucks. I can't find the motivation. Just telling you this is how I feel. I don't know what you're gonna do about it, but I'm exhausted. I feel lonely, and I hate it. And I went to lunch or something. I come back, and there was a note on my desk, and it said, just refuse, like, excuse the language here. It said, nobody got to the top by being a little bitch. Stay hard. And the best part is that note is still on my wall. Our broker in charge probably doesn't love this story, but it is still on my wall.
You have better ones.
It's still on my wall. It means the world to me. And every time I get into a space that I'm like, man, this sucks, or I feel lonely, or I feel bored, I look at that wall, I look at that note that he wrote to me, not even thinking, just being funny, right? But that note means everything to me. And it's just one more thing that I can look at and remind myself of why I'm doing all this in the first place. And it helps me overcome the two things that I usually have to overcome so that I don't quit. And it's that loneliness and the boredom. So I would go to that list. I go to that list all the time. And I reflect on it. Hey, how am I doing with these two things? What am I doing? Who am I becoming? What am I doing to make sure that I'm not susceptible to these two things at the rate that I could? That's going to create a quit in me. So I hope that's helpful. So real quick, before we move in, take a quick break and then move into the next. Is that cool?
Yeah.
We're not going to go through the tech piece, but command, there's a lot of trainings on command.
To be clear, the reason we're not doing it in the individual classes, Friday will be mapped out only for command.
Yeah.
So we have one specific for it. It's not like you have to go find that from there. We just condensed it that way to get more use out of it this time.
Click through.
Yeah.
So command is your database. We talked about how important your database is. There's a couple of tools in real estate that we have that we need to utilize to create effectiveness and efficiency in our business. Number one, the most important is your CRM, your client relationship management tool, or also known as your database. In command, these are all the applets in command. On the left, this would be contacts, the little people. If you don't use anything else, just use that little people icon. The more people you put into that database and communicate with, the bigger your business will be, I guarantee. If you look at it and you say, how many people am I talking to every day about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, or more specifically about their real estate related goals, that's how many people you will sell houses to. If I talk to 20 people every day about their real estate related goals, utilizing my database as a tool to do so, I'll sell 20 homes, right, in a year. Next. So we've got a toolkit. In Ignite, you've got access to a toolkit. If you go to
You'll get an email.
You'll get an
You
email
probably
with
already
this.
have it. It'll have a link
Yeah.
directly to this.
Awesome. Real quick, go back. The reason that a lot of things we don't end up, the reason we don't do some things is because we don't know how. Maybe I don't know how to preview a house. Preview homes job aid. I clicked on that this morning. It tells you exactly what you have to do to preview a home and the things that you should be looking at. And it's actually a form that you fill out. What's the architecture? What year was it built? What's X, Y, and Z, right? Maybe I didn't know how to do, maybe I don't know how to get the information. LT Mama, is that the thing? LP Mama, or whatever it is, that conversation that you have with buyers, right? You're going to learn more about that, but maybe I don't know exactly what I have to remember. It's LP Mama is like, yeah, what?
Motivation, price, motivation, ability.
Yeah, mortgage.
and agent.
Do they have an agent?
Yep.
I don't know them, but I know the acronym.
I didn't even know there was an app.
LP.
I didn't either. That's what I was
It's
quick.
like, what are you talking about? Is this like a
LP
Facebook
Mom.
group? Like
Right.
LP
But it's all on
moms?
this sheet.
Yeah.
A whole lot of help.
So my point is, these are tools that you can utilize so that you can do things you don't know how to do. So do it. Next.
The other thing this does is it prevents you from getting ready to get ready.
Yeah. that's a
That
good
will be
one.
your biggest challenge is you're like, I'm not going to do anything until I have the perfect buyer questionnaire, the listing presentation, the buyer presentation. It's all there. It's all created by a marketing company that makes millions of dollars a month to do research on what works. It's already there. So don't get into analysis paralysis.
Yeah, so these are all the learning modules that you're going to go through over the next 2 weeks. Next. That's one of them. And this is one of the most important pieces. These are the activities. We call it the 10-4, right? You're going to, every day, you're going to add 10 new contacts to your database. You're going to speak with 10 people in your database using the Ford script. If you don't know what to say, just use the Ford script. And honestly, here's the easiest part about this conversation is, hey, Allison, was thinking about you the other day. How you doing? Everybody in this room is super personable. Just start there. Hello, how you doing? And it's amazing where the conversation will go. And then finish with, I was thinking, what are your real estate related goals this year? 10 people in your database. Sorry, go back, I don't remember it. Follow up 10 notes. So write 10 people or 10 notes to the people you've recently contacted. Most people don't do this. This is a lost art. When you follow up with a handwritten note, the connection and the feeling. People don't remember the words that are coming out of your mouth. They remember the way you're making it feel. What is the feeling when you open something and it says, hey, Tim, really appreciated our conversation the other day. If you need anything, give me a call. Handwritten note, and then know your market. We talked about previewing 10 homes. You are a local expert. You're getting paid for knowledge, advice, and service. If you don't know about the homes that are coming on the market every day, and you haven't gone and seen them, or at least looked at them on the MLS, how are you going to be an expert to anybody in your database about buying, selling, or investing in real estate?
But also let us know if you don't have your showing time, if
Yeah.
you don't know how to schedule a showing,
Mhm.
then we can go over that as well.
100%.
And make sure you take advantage of it. There is a lot of virtual training. Like all of this is, like Vince said, this is digitally based and physically enhanced. We want to make sure that you have the access at all times to go to those, either training through the MLS, everything here, the toolkit that you're going to get from Jai, all these things you can get to. Obviously, come to us if you need whatever you like, if you have any questions about all of it. But know that the training's out there if you get caught in a bind by any chance. If you come up with it late at night, you want to go research all that.
Give me, before we take a quick break, give me 3 ahas. 3 things that you learned. What are 3 things that you learned?
I was just gonna say yesterday was very eye-opening with Winnie. I shadowed her at open house. She's very familiar with West Ashley. I am not.
Yeah.
And I know Somerville, and that's it. So that's what I'm eager to do, to preview the house.
That's awesome.
But it happens over time.
Yeah.
I love that.
You gotta, I'm glad that you were able to
Yeah,
say that.
it's right.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the more you swing the bat, the better you're gonna get at things. Write this page over down, page 88 in the MREA. I love that page
Why is it so?
Why do you love it?
because I say it so many times. Why do I love it? Because it's about swinging the bat. The more you swing the bat, the better you're going to get at things, right? It's quantity over quality. We sit here all the time and try to create the best listing presentation, right? Or the best X, Y, and Z. FYI, the first time you do something, you're gonna suck it.
Terribly. Like
It's gonna
this,
be
this is
horrible.
this is such an important point. Like I've always said, we need to put together a panel of experienced agents and talk about their first couple of mess ups. Like just so you'll be like, oh, okay, take a deep breath. I will survive. Like
Yeah.
you will mess it up. I had my first buyer consultation, get up and walk out. She's like, I am not comfortable with this. I'm sorry. There's too much pressure. It was a glass conference room, this huge office in the front of my market center in Atlanta. And she got up and walked out. And I looked over, and I'll never forget it. We call her Sweet Georgia Brown was the director of First Impressions. She just came over. She's like, honey, I'm sorry. I'm like tearing up, like I'm a grown man. This is fine. It was awful. You will mess it up and you will survive.
Yeah,
You will survive.
it's the key, right? The 100th time though, I bet is going to be absolutely amazing. And you're going to knock it out of the park and you're going to be really good at it. Doesn't happen without the first. It's the goofiest thing. You're never going to get it 100% right on the first go around. It is really going to be bad. And you're going to fail forward. And it's not going to be that bad. Oh, well, missed the ball. Next, throw another ball. Like, throw another pitch because I'll hit the next one. That's the mindset you have to have. You have to continue to, again, motivation management, right? Just keep swinging the bat. That's why I love page 88. Any other ahas? Give me two more.
Mine's more of call, not text.
Ah.
Database, because I text a lot, but I feel like I'm still missing that connection.
Mhm.
And I've been doing cold calls lately, so I feel more comfortable just
Nice.
even just calling my database
Nice.
just to say hi, you know.
I love that. You just made a great point, and I feel more comfortable. I bet on the first time you made the call, you didn't feel as comfortable as you made when you make the call now.
Yeah.
It's there, and it's not that bad. My mentor used to say to me, Ben, the worst thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna either say no, or you can just hang up the phone. Like on a cold call, by the way, I don't really totally like it. For example, if this wasn't expired, it's not cold. You already know they want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. They're saying I want to sell my house. That's not cold. That's way better than going through the phone book and just picking Ed. That's really cold. Right?
Oh, man.
But I don't know.
Poor Ed.
Sorry, Ed. He'll do all right. It's called fail forward. So I love that. That's it. And you got, give me another
Big why.
big one.
Yeah,
Don't stop people from putting.
yeah, that's a good point.
Zeroing in on that. Sometimes I feel like mine, it's like, for me, I don't have to support a family. I can't imagine nothing more would fuel you more than having to feed someone else. So it's like my own financial freedom, my own time freedom. Is that a big enough why?
Oh
my gosh. Oh, you just gotta hold on a second.
I
You got
love
started,
it.
Mia.
This is awesome.
But that's sometimes when I go through my, the evenings, the weekends, and you're like, why am I working so hard for a check out of St. Thomas?
Yeah.
And
That's what you just said is not outside of the ordinary. A lot of people struggle with this idea, is my why big enough? Right? And some people, we can go into worthy, we can go into all kinds of different directions with this question. Here's the key to it. Number one, I would encourage everybody to not compare their insides to somebody else's outsides, right? What somebody else is doing doesn't matter, right? It matters, it's your life only, right? And you have things that are going to motivate you differently than maybe other people have. Here's the other part. A big why, most of the time we're saying big why. I hate the word big why. Like, I didn't do this earlier, but I would just X out the word big, because big, it makes us feel as if there's a small, right? When in reality, if our why is clear, what does it matter whether I think it's big or Joseph thinks it's big? It's yours, not mine, right? And to like mine, my big why, right, or the reason that I get up every day to do what I'm doing and to build what I'm building may mean absolutely nothing to you. I don't give a shit. Doesn't matter, because it really just doesn't matter. It's really hard to get to that point. And I think that's where you just kind of keep on going back and say, mine is mine, and I'm doing this for other people, sure, but I'm going to get this first. And what ends up happening is that expands too. It'll change over time as well. But you're not unique in your feeling, because I've had conversations with agents before, or just like business owners and stuff like that before, and that comes up when it's just for me. I mean, at one point, I wanted a boat. All I cared about was a boat and a Tahoe pool. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
I want a boat and a Tahoe to pool.
Okay.
I was gonna say, right? But like, is that helping people? Is that, well, I'd have to help people so that I can get that. It could just be to pay off my student loans. What does that do for me and my family? Because that's number one in my life. And then maybe that expands. There was a book that I was reading that was talking about this idea of, first, most like business owners are really focused on themselves and on creating for themselves. It's this idea of chasing success, right? So we really chase success, whatever that means to us. And then all of a sudden, significance becomes more important because we hit success. And significance is this idea of giving back, right? And it's just a matter of what do we have to do between the ears so that we can get to that piece. Does that make sense? It's a great point. You want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Well, the other thing is it changes, right? It doesn't remain the same. I mean, mine for the longest time was to stop waiting tables. That was my big why in real estate. I didn't want to have a second job. And then when I got out of that, it's like, okay, I had to readjust. What's the next one? What's now, you readjust with family situations, with life situations. So and I think the most important point that Vince made is it doesn't matter what someone else is doing, right? I mean, if you spend any time with Keller Williams, we talk about the big why, and I love the analogy of really kind of getting rid of the word big, because you'll hear these people have these grandiose things that they do that drives them, and it's like, what? Like my wife's a perfect example. My wife's big why is she wakes up and everyone she loves is alive. That happens, she's good. So she can't compare, I can't compare to her and her to me because we are motivated very differently.
Everybody's wired different.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't compare your insides to somebody else's outsides. So somebody, a mentor of mine at one point told me, he said, like, because I was mentioning, like, I was annoyed by how somebody else thought of me. He goes, what other people think of you is none of your business. It really isn't any of your business. And
That's a good thing to have on repeat in your head.
Right.
I constantly, that's on repeat. So whenever I think that someone's thinking, whenever I go into the rabbit holes of just weird stuff, I always repeat that. And it always freaks me back because it's true. There's a book, I don't know who the author is, but your opinion is none of my business.
Well, what's the other one? You wouldn't care is how much people think of you if you realize how seldom they actually do.
Yeah.
yeah,
So, okay, that's good.
it's fun. All right, let's take a 5-minute break. Be back at like 10:26, and we'll get rocking. Ran a little over.
It's my fault. I thought.
It is not your fault. We got too much information. We got a lot of information to cover in this.
Plan. LP Mama, what's LP Mama stand for?
Location, price, motivation, age.
So,
And appointment.
Well, there you go.
I thought it was ability, Pete. Was it ability?
No, appointment.
Location, price, mortgage.
Motivation. Agent, do you have an agent? Here, go with location, price, motivation. Agent. Mortgage. Appointment.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no. Like, I've never seen that. It was like three couples that, yeah. Yeah. Even if they're 18. It's fun to roam around. Did you do door knocking with her too, or? Okay. Yeah, I was like,
here. Why does more volume matter? Freedom.
For me.
Yeah, so more volume, how does it get you freedom?
Financial freedom.
More money.
Absolutely.
More volume means more money. Yeah,
Cap sooner.
cap sooner, right? More units. Why is more units better? More money, right? That's why, like, it's very simple, right? If you want more, then attach it to units or volume. Go be number one in that category.
Put one word in front of the word more, and it's do.
Do. Touche.
Draw more.
Do more. Or do it smarter. Understand what's the factory that I'm running, then optimize it to do more, right? Because, and that's the key. That's what we're going to talk a lot about in this. I think this is lead generation, or prospecting, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. All right. All right, so we're just gonna continue on with basically how Vince threw this off and go from, all right, now that we've talked about the why we're doing lead generation, why we're doing all that.
Oh, this is
how
what
we-
you're looking at?
No, that's yours. So, all right, you should have it should be set, it should say elementals 1 prospect. So before you get started on that, I just want to start with a graphic that this actually was first given to me by my first team leader that I've referenced ever since, because I think it gives us a really good visual on lead generation. This is how we talk about what we reference, the 4 laws of lead generation that are in the red book, right? If you haven't, you will start to see a pattern: red book, systems, models, tools. The reason we do that is because they work, right? So if you look at the 4 laws of lead generation, does anybody know what it is? If you're not, Vince, Delisha, or Winnie, the 4 laws of lead generation are. It's not in your book, so don't know. Okay. All right. So number 1 is to build a database. You might want to jot this down because it's not in your notes, but we'll reference this a lot. So the first thing is to build a database. So if you look at a database, I draw it like a target. The first law is to build a database. The second law is to feed it every day. So once you built the database, you put people in there, and you start feeding it every day. You'll have people you already know, and then each day, which is what part of your assignment is during Ignite, is to keep putting people in there. The number 3 is communicate with it systematically. And the reason you're doing that is you're communicating with it to look for leads that are in your database, right? The stars represent leads. These could be buyers and sellers that you know, or people that are eventually going to refer you buyers or sellers. And as you get closer to the center of the database, the concentration of leads is greater. Why?
Because they know, like, and trust you.
The relationship's stronger, right? So we build it, we put people in there, we communicate with it systematically to build that relationship, to get the leads, to do number 4, which is to service your leads. So when it says service your lead, what does that mean?
Client from start to finish.
Okay, so that's customer service. That's why I'm glad we're having the exercise. Very important, right? But when we're talking about service leads here, what is the key phrase that we're looking for? Follow up. Because here's what happens: is lead generation is all about lead generation and then lead follow up. So if you spend the next 2 weeks really diving into this whole, I'm going to add 10 people a day. In 2 weeks, that's basically you're doing 10 people a day. That's 50 a week, assuming you only work 5 days a week. You've added 100 people to your database. If you do that and you don't follow up, and I always just write pipeline, right? If you don't follow up through a pipeline, particularly with leads, you won't convert them, right? We talked about this in the business planning on Thursday. 2% of leads will convert on the first contact. 2%.
That's across industry.
Right? That's just how it works, right? It's not good, right? Good or bad, right or wrong. That is what the numbers are. So you want to make sure you do that. So we're going to keep referencing this today because, again, build it, put people in there, communicate with it in order to build trust so they'll send you leads.
And to that point, that means if only 2% convert on the first contact and you never touch them again, right? And never have a conversation with them again, that means 98% of the time is just wasted. That means 98% of your time is wasted. We did an exercise one time around growing the office, and recruiting agents. And 70% of agents joined the company within the follow-up process. We realized that we didn't have a follow-up process. I said, holy smokes, that means I'm wasting 70% of my time. The biggest fear for me is wasting time. I couldn't handle it. We had a follow-up system the next day. That's the key, right? Most of the time, we don't even follow up with people.
Yeah.
Only 80% of individuals follow up more, or I'm sorry, 20% of individuals follow up more than 5 times. 80% of sales happen on follow-ups 5+.
Right.
That's goofy.
It's
Change
Right,
that.
right. So go for a couple slides. Keep going.
We've seen that.
That one. All right, so here's kind of what it looks like from, this is their version of this, right? And I think it's important to talk about this and to simplify it, right? So what this says is basically you prospect and market, you lead generate, right? And you're bringing those people in as 2 types of people, leads and contacts.
We're now in our elementals in this one. by the
Yeah,
way.
we're not in the material yet, but this, when we do get the material, will be in the elemental one. So the leads, basically you track and make offers. Contacts you connect, also make offers to turn them into leads, right? Then you cultivate them. So over time, you're basically gonna have a pipeline that you send people into in order to build relationships with them and get leads. Here's how I want to kind of overly simplify this. Because command is wonderful. What you'll learn about command is you can tag them in different categories. You do all these things, and it's amazing. And that's also part of the problem, because you spend a lot of time tagging them, creating all these categories. And guess what you're not doing while you're doing all of that? Communicating with them and following up, right? Because you're trying to make, and again, there's no judgment. I promise, if you go look at our command right now, we have like 52 different tags, right? And we can narrow people down by people who purchased on an odd month facing west with a red door, right? For that one time that we want to reach out to that specific group of people. The challenge is that's so rare, it doesn't happen. So if we know from what Winnie said earlier, we get more concentration in here because the relationship is better. And then Bent said this earlier, what creates the relationship? Right? Communication. Your communication. So if I know the most important part of my database is how I communicate with them, in my opinion, from my simple mind, I think there are only 3 people that are in your database. 3 types of people that are in your database to start. So if you're building it, you start with 3 people. What do you think those 3 people are? Who do you think they are?
know the met and not met.
Okay, you're good with METs. We'll start with METs. So METs, if you're not familiar, those are people that you've met, your sphere of influence, right? So you've got your METs in your database. That's your one group. What are I got 2 more groups of people. Nobody else matters except for these 3 groups. Part of your METs. So they'd be in METs as well. You may want to tag them so eventually you can separate them from that for whatever reason, but from as it relates to communicate, for the most part, your foundational communication with all of your METs is going to be the same, right? Your conversations will be different, but you got your METs and then there are 2 more. Don't overthink it. Buyer leads and seller leads. That's it. So you have your METs and you want to build your business from the people that you know, and then you have buyer leads and seller leads. You do not need to tag anyone else in your database. Everyone that goes into your database will fall into one of these 3. Past clients, METs. Vendors, METs, right? Everyone you know. And then when they say raise their hand, either as a MET or a cold lead that I want to buy or sell, they become a lead at that point. Again, that's simple. I'm telling you, if you take anything from creating your database, keep it that simple. Because here's what will tend to happen is you'll have 14 different categories and you'll say, and when you learn about this in your follow-up, your smart plans, you'll say, okay, here's a smart plan for people who are not looking to buy or sell yet, but I want to build a relationship. Who all goes in there? Well, now you got to go through and say, okay, I guess my family does, my past clients do, all these people do. No, your METs have one group, they all go in, right? Buyer leads will get communicated one way, seller leads will get communicated the other way, okay? So just keep those 2 in mind to keep it simple, those 3 in mind to keep it that simple. I know it seems too simple. Just as a quick review, who are the 3 people that go in your database? METs, buyer leads, and seller leads. I promise you one day you'll be like, man, that was brilliant. Did not think of it myself. Go to the next one. All right, so when you lead generate, tailor your message and your method. There are 2 things on here. Your message, match your market, right? Your market is going to be one of 2 things, either a target audience or market conditions. What does that mean? You're lead generating and you've got a message that's targeting your market, either through matching it or your market conditions. What does that mean?
tailored it specifically to what's going on here in Charleston, maybe a particular subdivision
Correct.
or somebody looking for.
Correct. Also an example that person, let's take the subdivision example that Duncan just gave. Let's say you have our Met group, yet he has a subgroup that say shadow moss. He's going to tailor the message specific to that target audience. So when he gives market updates, it's going to be about shadow moss, right? The other one is market conditions. You can just, that could be targeted to anyone. What is the market condition people need to know about right now? Like, what's an important thing to know about what the market, like literally within the last 7 days, what do people need to realize what's happening in the market right now?
And more homes hit the market than the last
100%.
4 months traditionally.
Right? No, more homes are staying on the market, right? Days on market's creeping up. Prices and values are slowing down, right? What does that mean?
All kinds of good things, depending on who's asking.
Exactly, right? And that's the part of the message you need to be careful that you don't pigeonhole that message. This isn't a bad thing. We can't sustain what we were doing, right? So we need to be able to deliver that message. Okay, so now we've got the matching your market on your message, make an offer, either direct offer or an indirect offer. What does that mean?
Oh, if I'm working with a buyer, I'll make an offer, I'm gonna write it, and send it.
Right, okay, so that's specifically as you're working with a buyer to submitting it, but if you're prospecting, right, and you're reaching out to your database, you're reaching out to buyer and seller leads, you're talking about making an offer, what would that look like? What's the purpose of making an offer?
Think about it from the standpoint of call to action.
You're looking for a response, right? You're looking for a response. So what would be an example of making an offer? John, you say something?
Setting up time to talk, ask them.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Would you like to learn more about the market? By the way, we talked about this earlier, is the Ford script, or how do you break the ice? You know, there's a really easy way to break the ice. I asked John, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on in the real estate market. Would you be interested in hearing more about that? He's gonna say one or two things. One of two things. What is it? So you can't be surprised anymore, right? Like, you know what his answer is going to be, so you can't be surprised. If it's yes, awesome, would you like to set up a time to hear more about it? Or no, awesome, I'll touch base with you in 90 days, and if it's something you're interested in at the time, I can send it to you. Otherwise, let me know if you need that. Right? So you're engaging them, asking for a response. Then we have our method. And this is what we're going to spend some more time on. This is prospecting versus marketing. We're really going to spend a decent amount of time on this as it relates to specific types of lead generation. Is what does it look like to prospect versus market? So if you hear prospecting versus marketing, what does that mean to you? What's the difference?
How much are we actually looking for leads versus how many times we face something?
That's pretty spot on. I mean, it is. It's prospecting is actually looking for leads, going out there and finding business that needs you now. Go to the next one. Whereas marketing is putting yourself out there for when people do need you. Right now, we always talk about being a prospecting-based business that is marketing enhanced. So with this graphic up there, why do you think that's important?
You can market all day long. Prospecting, you're not actually going out there and securing those leads, and all the marketing you do doesn't get anything.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And that's why we always say with people who join teams or when they join, lead program, like if you don't have a prospecting system in place, you run the risk of just spinning your wheels and wasting a lot of money, right? So you're money intensive on the marketing side. It's a little more passive. It's a little more long-term. A lot of us want some immediate results, right? We want to be more proactive, right? Now, what this does create is some time-intensive work. And that's what we got to be careful on, is to make sure as we design our prospecting plan, which we're going to do kind of on a small level before we leave today, is we want to make sure that you're picking what fits you the most on here. Which one of these is correct? Whichever one you're going to do, right? Whichever one you're going to do. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind. So turn to page 4 in your manual.
Quick point to that. 9 times out of 10, consistency is key, right? We talked about this earlier. Consistency is where that is the bread and butter. You have to do things that you're going to do all the time, and we're not going to do things we don't like consistently.
Right.
And oh, by the way, usually things that we don't like, we're no good at them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So do the things that you like and stay consistent with doing them. And I think that's where Joseph's going, and which one of these is best, whatever one you're going to do.
Right.
And then you add to it.
Right. So if you look at page 4, this is a list of all the different ways you could prospect. Right. So glance through those. If you've been in the business for any period of time, or if you're brand new, circle, put a check next to or star what you've either tried or you feel like you want to do from what little you know about being in real estate. So take like 30 seconds to a minute to just highlight, circle anything on that page that you would be interested in doing or that you have done.
And mark any that you don't know what they are, and then we can answer that question too.
I think one thing that should be on this is like your hobbies, like hobby groups.
Great point.
It's not like it's like I almost would put it in like community outreach, maybe key relationships.
Right?
Social groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the simple,
Yeah,
Ken Temple,
exactly.
Ken Temple talks about all the time that the massive database they built from tennis. Like they love
I'm
tennis.
literally talking to one of my runner group. people,
Right,
like,
right. Huge one. That's a
Yeah.
great one. All right, so what'd you circle?
Banks, third-party companies,
Okay,
the only two that I really want to work with.
okay. What else?
For me, it's for sell by owners, because I have friends that just went through that, and thought they could do it on their own, and they realized very quickly that it's not as easy as what they thought it was.
It is, when we get to FISBOs here in a few minutes, come back to that, because there's some really great ways you can capitalize on that story. It's an important story to have in this market. Okay, what else?
Volunteer, community outreach kind of stuff, open houses, I think would be a good idea. Definitely to learn how to do it for sure.
Right, okay, what else?
I think what Winnie said, it should be, that's just that, again, what you're into, like, I'm into
Your
E2M,
hobbies.
I'm into E2M, I'm into gaming, like, there's a whole sector that I don't offense anybody, but I guarantee nobody in here is talking about, is thinking about gamers, it's
Right.
whatever else, but, you know, I know that market, I know the area.
Clarify, nobody in real estate is talking to anyone right now at the level that they should. Right, and the point to take from that is all you have to do is outperform the people in your conversations. It's crazy. I mean, it's like the example you gave last week about something, the pressure washer thing.
Oh, yeah.
Or what was it? I mean, there are plenty of things to do. The challenge isn't ways to do it, it's actually doing it, right? So pick any of those, and you're right, you'll crush it because at this point, it's a contact sport.
And by the way, John, to that point, it's this idea of connection, right? You're going to connect way faster with somebody in that community than I am. And it's this idea of like, Simon Sinek gives this example of being on a subway in France. And we're both on the subway, and I'm from Jersey, and I see somebody from Wichita, Kansas, or whatever. I have absolutely nothing in common with them other than the fact that we're both American. I'm going to feel closer to that individual than I am all the individuals that don't speak my language, which is then going to lead to me asking them about where I should go to dinner. And in reality, they shouldn't be telling me where to go to dinner. They're from Wichita, Kansas, and we're in France. There are a lot of individuals there that are better suited to give me advice about where to go to dinner, but I'm going to be drawn to that individual. It's connection. And it's the same with the connection that you have to that particular target, that particular community. Leverage it. You're already closer to them. And again, people do business with people you like. Colleagues, teachers, right? And it's the same thing. It's about who is it that I already know and that I'm already connected with a little closer to. And we going back to this, right? The relationship is already stronger for you with those people than it is with me and those people.
Right.
Leverage it.
It's kind of like, just like you said, I hate to say in life, it's fake it till you make it, but when you're in your social circles, you're more honest and real.
Yes.
And that's kind of what it's like, you know?
Yeah,
and
Your-
people
your
are drawn to
teachers,
that.
Most of the people in your phone are probably friends of teachers. That's kind of what it's like. you know,
Right.
Running group, same thing.
Yep.
What it's
Yeah.
like.
Well, here's
Just
Eric, the good point to make in that is,
love that.
yes, fake till you make it. In real estate, fake it on your knowledge until you make it, not on how busy you are. The challenge we see, Brian Buffini talks about this. Like, we got a bunch of peacocks in real estate walking around like, oh my God, look how busy I am. The market. And they're like, I'm not sending you any more business because you'll lose your mind. So you're faking it is your knowledge.
Yeah.
Like going out and saying, because when someone will say, how's the real estate market? How many people do you know right now? It's like, oh, it's friggin' crazy. It's nuts. And it's like, okay, do you enjoy it? Because you sound like you don't. Whereas like, well, it's awesome. I'm sure you're hearing crazy things that are going on. What have you heard? Engage that conversation.
What makes you ask?
Yeah.
Just answer a question with a question.
Yeah.
Don't tell them what, right? What makes you ask?
Such a good point, right? You just have to be prepared to have a conversation. Okay, so jump to the next one. So we're gonna dive deep into prospecting methods. Keep going. These are kind of the ones we're going to touch on today. We're going to spend more time on door knocking and open houses. The agent-to-agent referrals, you're going to talk more about in the command class. And then social media, there are going to be a handful of classes we're going to talk about on that. The approach is the same on all of them, though. That's the important part to make is what, and we're going to start narrowing down what you want to choose as your chosen prospecting method. The approach is going to be the same. You're going to use that prospecting method to build your database, feed it, communicate, service the leads. Right? So door knocking. You can feel the tension. The door knocking. So turn to page 5. In your book. So we're going to talk about a couple different things: your approach, how to act on it, how to ask, and then how to move forward. So when you hear door knocking, what do you think?
Don't open the door.
Right behind the couch.
Right?
Right behind the couch.
Right? And people hear.
Just be real still.
Right.
They don't know their own.
Right. Right. Okay, it's true. Anybody done it?
No.
Okay. So is that why you feel that way? Was that your
I just know
experience?
when people knock on my door, it's literally like, it's like if I can shape shift. From the house is collapsed. I do that sometimes.
Right. All right. So what are your hesitations on that?
Well, the problem is because you're not talking about someone going into a business. You're not talking, like you're going for someone rich. That's someone's safe space. It's someone's home.
Right.
So that's not something that most people in most occasions are okay or comfortable with.
Okay.
And when you get a door knock, 9 times out of 10, it's either someone asking if you heard about Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or someone that's selling you some kind of pest control,
Right.
solar, or solar panel, or some other bullshit that's
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we change that? How do we shift it?
Yeah, change between your ears.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you're not selling solar panels, right? You're not selling the, whatever your faith may be, right? You're selling what?
So
A smile, like
There
that,
you
like,
Right.
that's.
Well, this goes back to like, what's
It's
your approach? Here's the question is we just talk about door knocking, we don't really have an approach. Right, so what can an approach be that would make it different? That would allow you to do it? Because here's the deal, your mindset with it, there are some people that will never do door knocking, and that's fine, right? Because if you're not gonna do it confidently, don't do it. Right? If you're not gonna do it because you have these limiting beliefs, that's fine. Find something else that will work. And this isn't directed at you, you just made the comment. This is everyone, right? You're not alone on that. So what are some approaches that you could use in the door knocking that would change your thought process?
Think of it this way. What would make it easier? From an approach, like if I'm going to ask myself, what's the approach? What would make it easier?
If you had a purpose, like if you're holding it open.
Totally agree.
house,
There you
your
go.
value.
There you go. So we're gonna get, open house is a good one. Pin that because we're gonna come back more specifically in open houses. What else?
I'm working for my client.
Yeah.
I'm here to knock on your door. They're looking in the neighborhood, can't find one that they like. Curious, you guys are thinking about making a move or maybe know the neighbor that is that we can go talk to that.
One or
I'm
two
working
responses.
for my
What
client.
are the responses gonna be? 1 or 2 responses to that.
No, I don't, or yes, I do.
That's it. That is it. We can't act like we're not to be prepared. No, I don't, or yes, I do. Yes, I am interested. Well, bam. When can we sit down and talk more about it? I'd love to share you all the information, be prepared to have the meeting now. No, I'm not interested. It's not something I would do. What's the response to that?
Great, you think 6 months to a year, you may have some interest.
Right. Exactly. Do you mind if I send you some information to keep you updated on? Everything, there's 4 goals to lead generation. Write this down, it's not in your book. 4 goals to lead generation. Number 1, what's the most important thing when you're doing lead generation? What would you imagine like the best thing to happen would be? Set an appointment, right? Like get an appointment with someone. If you don't get an appointment with someone, what's the next best thing? Meaning what?
That I'm building that relationship rapport for growth and knowledge for them later on.
Perfect. Relationship. You skipped one and they're not, but it's still, I mean, that's important. Well, who said it? Referral. They're going to refer you someone. And then what's the last one? Sale will be part of the appointment of the referral. Meaning?
A
Close.
relationship model.
Yeah. You add someone to your database, right? As long as one of these 4 things are happening, it was a success. Guys, the numbers speak for themselves. The number of contacts you have to make to get an appointment can be daunting. And the reason that they're daunting is we don't put into consideration the importance of strengthening a relationship and then adding to your group of people. So back to the example, Duncan knocks on my door and says, I've got a buyer that's looking in your neighborhood. Are you interested? Have you ever considered buying or selling your home? No, I haven't. Awesome. Well, it's a hot market. I'm sure you've heard. Here's some statistics on Brickyard. If you have any questions about it, here's my card. I'd love to keep in touch, just update you on what's going on. Now I've added some to my database. Now, is there a chance that person's not interested and you cut them off and it's a little awkward? The answer is yes. Right?
Short-term memory.
Yeah, the answer is yes. And by the way, that has nothing to do with you, right? We take things so personally in real estate. All right, does anybody here eat fast food? Okay, so pretend you did.
Taco Bell, I
Thank
will be
you.
guilty.
Thank you.
I had McDonald's breakfast yesterday. It was epic. So good.
So worried about it now.
Sausage McMuffin with
You
egg.
drive through McDonald's and you say, I want a number 2 with a Coke. What's the next thing they say?
Okay.
Double it up. Would you like to supersize it? Right, what do you say?
Of
Assuming you
course.
say no. You're near bed, it's like,
Yeah. But make it
You
a Diet
say
Coke.
no. Like the majority of the time, if you don't, you should. Unless, then not the side note, but don't.
You're right.
But when you say no, do they come back and be like, well, why not? Was it how I asked? Like, is it something that I said? No, they just didn't want to supersize the price. They're just not interested in the market information right now. Has nothing to do with you. Put them in your database, follow up with them. Got their address, send them a personal note, right? Again, it's follow. So change your approach. Number 1, then act. Right? When you make the approach, go out, have the approach, have that conversation with them, ask them for the business, and what does it mean by advance?
That's some sort of an expectation of follow-up.
Right? Follow up with them. Why, again, are the people out here less likely to give you business than the people in here?
You don't follow up.
They don't know you as
All
well.
right.
Therefore, right? So 2 reasons. 1, you haven't done a good job following them, or you just met them. Right? So in this scenario, which is a great scenario, Duncan just met this person. Is there a chance they don't want to really hear from him right now? Yes. And over time, I'm going to build a relationship so they move closer and closer to the center of the sphere. Will there be a chance they never move in closer? 100%. There is a chance. Let them make that decision after you've made the effort to build a relationship, which, by the way, is why you feed it every day, because people will also come out. There will be the people that you meet, and after a couple follow-ups, you just know you're not getting that relationship, right? I'm not talking about past clients or anything like that. I'm talking about that scenario, right? So you just need to make sure how it's important to continue to follow up.
And most of the time, we're creating a story. Back to what we were talking about earlier. We're creating a story about why they responded the way that they did to us, right? I remember at Morgan Stanley, I had an individual that literally screamed at me over the phone and went to the branch manager complaining about me. She ended up moving her $1.5 million account over 6 months later, right? Because I just kept following up with her, and she was just having an absolutely horrible day. Something tragic happened in her family, and she took it out on me. But I didn't take it personally. I mean, don't get me wrong, it kind of sucked.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
pretty angry,
Oh, yeah.
and she wasn't very nice. Yet I literally called her back to apologize, and then she apologized to me, created a relationship. We went from way out here, like really far out here, to then in 6 months, she's moving $1.5 million over to me to help her manage it. It was fascinating, the difference. Like that, it was because I didn't project, right? I didn't take it personally, and I just appreciated the fact that maybe they have something else going on. Right.
I had a really good point.
It probably wasn't that good.
Well, yeah, it probably wasn't.
Helpful for agent to agent communication too.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you have,
Especially agents, especially right now. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
Yeah.
So, full disclosure, I had to make a humble pie call to another broker on Friday.
I heard about that over a
I
beer.
fired off an email and I was done with the situation. I was done with it. The problem was nobody else was done with it.
But it was over email, not.
Oh yeah, I mean, like most courageous people do. They say, and I sent one that was bad. I hit send and I was like, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And he let me know. Yeah, he let me know. And he copied all the same people and letting me know that I copied on the original one. And I picked up the phone. I was like, listen, you're right. You know, this is not the way to handle it. And you know, he's like, I get it, man. I mean, they were wrong in certain areas, but my points were not important. So again, continue to build it. I mean, time and time again, we hear in bold on if you're prospecting FSBOs or expireds, the stories you'll hear in the first contact are awful. Stop calling me. Everyone from your company's calling me. I don't hear from you again. They call the next week, it's the same script. They're like, yeah, I mean, I would like to talk to you more about it. It's a short-term memory. A lot of times they don't even remember it was you that called first.
3 minutes after you hang up, you can call them back and they won't remember.
Yeah.
I've had people scream at me and I'm like, that didn't end well. I'll call them back. Literally 3 minutes later, I call back. They have no idea it's the same.
Right.
It's just like,
Right, right.
Yep, it's true. It is very true.
Yeah.
Because I have a very good memory. I will be like, I'm sorry we have this conversation.
All right, jump to the.
Oh, and I'll hang up.
All right, jump to the next one. Agent, we're gonna come back to that in command. Keep going. Those referrals. All right, open houses. I do want to spend some time on this one, because this should be something that everyone should be doing right now. Okay, so if you will jump to page 8. Actually, start on page 7. Page 7 talks about this, it kind of touches on this theory that's not really covered very deeply in here that I want to do. And this is kind of we're going to talk a lot about your timing of lead generation. And the model used to say 3 hours of lead generation, right? 3 hours of lead generation. And when I say to you 3 hours of lead generation, like, what's your response? How do you feel about that?
I'm gonna be on the phone for 3 hours. Nope.
Right? What else? What else did you hear? Some of you are like, only 3 hours,
why not more?
right? Why not more, right? You're gonna have different ways. A lot of people say, what am I gonna do for those 3
I'm gonna
hours?
use-
4 hours, 5 hours, whatever it may be. And here's what it needs to look like, because when we don't break this down, which is what this prepare, prospect, and pursue is I always look at it as the prepare, action, and maintenance. Right? This is how you're gonna break your lead generation down. Prepare, action, and maintenance. Your prepare for the open house is getting ready for the open house. Right? What are you going to do for my preparation to get in the open house? What are you going to do to prepare for door knocking? What are you going to do to prepare for their networking event? Make sure you go into this prepared, because if you don't, networking events always give this example. If you don't go with something to talk about, or at least a way to engage, you're going to end up being a wallflower, have some free cocktails, have a good time, but probably not do a lot of networking. Right? So in your prepare, you're making your lists. Jot some of these down. You're making your lists. Who am I going to call? Or if it's for the open house, who am I going to door knock? Here's the other part that happens in your prepare time that may or may not be in here is you're going to practice your scripts. Who likes scripts?
I'm starting.
You're starting to, right? You're starting to. Who doesn't like scripts? Why?
I've been doing this for a long time, but to me, I've had AT&T shove scripts on my throat where it was just, it felt.
Yeah, AT&T background always this way. AT&T's really made it really hard for the real estate industry for people to learn scripts.
Scripts, I mean, I guess I can't say I hate them, I've learned to modify them too.
There you go.
There it
There
is.
you go. There it is.
That's the kicker.
Right.
That's the
right,
kicker.
right. The reason we don't like scripts, Lynn actually put this wonderfully. She said, we don't like scripts because Lynn's my wife, by the way. We judge them based on the first time we've heard them. Right. And what that means is we come to a class like this, and it's a FISBO class, let's say, and we start to practice, right? We're like, all right, John, I'm going to practice, and here's what it looks like. Hi, John. This is Joseph, and I'm with Keller Williams Realty. And you're like, that's terrible. I would never do that. And then we don't do it. We're like, I'm going to wing it. The problem is you start to wing it, and you build friendships, but you don't build business confidence. I used to actually be in that office right there, and I had a coach have me record my prospecting on FISBOs for like a week, because I was doing it. I had the activities, everything. He's like, I need you to record them and send them to me. Your calls, your live calls. I just want to hear your side. That's fine. I was like, well, there's good news. I was super happy about that. And so about a week later, he came back. He's like, here's the deal, man. You're a super nice guy. And I bet if you were to ask anyone to have a beer with you or anything like that, they'd be willing to do so. The problem is they're not buying from you. They're not listening with you. And that's because you're not sticking to the script. The moment they push back, you jump to what you're good at doing, which is just building a relationship and being kind of happy-go-lucky. And you're not actually asking for the business. So not only do you have to practice the scripts, because I can nail the scripts, you actually have to use them, right? So don't be afraid of them. They work, and you are going to have to modify, right?
With your authenticity, and that's the key, right, John? Like,
Yes.
everybody's gonna have, like, right now, for example, what's the number one objection you're going to get most likely when you ask somebody to list a house?
Where am I gonna go?
Where am I gonna go? each one of both of those, right? If you don't have an answer that's authentic to you, based in script and dialogue, which is really just like human behavior, right? You're missing the boat. Dude, you're gonna answer that question the same way every time. It's only, and it's like when somebody opens the door and we knock on the door, they're gonna either say yes or no. Make sure you have an answer that's authentic to you, because that's what's gonna draw people close, but answers the question. Like, you know it's coming. Like, I know if I call a real estate agent, they're gonna say, I'm happy where I am. Well, that's great. I don't like talking to people that aren't happy. I didn't ask you to go anywhere. Want to grab a cup of coffee? It's the same question every time.
Right.
So I say, I respond the exact way. Works for some people, doesn't work for some others, but it's a script that I just changed to me.
Right.
There's a book I read, really changed my real estate career. It's 80 pages. It's called Go For None.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And it literally discusses exactly what you were talking about earlier. When you walk into a retail business and the individual walks up and says, hey, how can I help you? Not good. It talks about statistically the first no you give, it's like you've got a 6% chance of actually them helping you. And when you get past the sixth no, it goes up to, I think it's like 78 or 83% chance.
Wow.
And I gave this book to my wife to read. That I did. Don't coach your significant others. But she kept asking me, she goes, why do they constantly get everything they want? I said, because they get past the sixth no. And she's like, what? She read this book, and legitimately my youngest, who's now 5, will be 6 in a couple days. She will sit there and ask repetitively. And at the sixth no, my wife's like, fuck it, you can have it.
Yeah.
It's like, there you go. So to be 6 again with that mentality, it's beneficial. So just don't take no for an answer.
What's this book called?
Go For No.
The best salespeople in the
Couple each.
Yeah, there you go. The best salespeople in the world know that the sale comes after the first objection. That's all that is, right? Get to the objection. Right? Get there quick. The faster you get there. Hey, Eric, you want to list your house? And then have an answer, right? Got there quick.
Right.
Move on.
Yeah. So after you've done your prepare, again, it's really good to start compartmentalizing this, because if you try to do it all at one time, a good list thing, FSBOs, did a lot of FSBOs. And I'd go and I'd find, right now, if I were doing it, I'd go straight to Zillow, I'd find one in my area, I'd do all the research on it, I'd pull up as much information as possible, I'd go find their contact information, I'd be ready to go, I'd call, I'd get a voicemail, leave a voicemail, and 15 minutes later, I'm on number 2, right? Don't do that. Like, you make your list. Here's their name, their phone number, maybe their address. You don't even need that. The less information you have, the more opportunity you have to build a relationship by asking them for that information. Then you move into action. Action, in this case, is holding your open house, is door knocking, is calling the visitors, right? And you only do the action during that. The biggest area you will get distracted is moving from action to maintenance. I have one. What do? Drop everything. Like, I got this person. He showed the slightest bit of like interest in hearing more from me. So he says, yes, send me some information. I get off the phone. I go look up the information. When I pull up my email, I of course get that one email from someone that says the deal's falling through. You're the only one who can save it. I go do that. I'm distracted. And then I never follow up with John, or when I finally do, I've run out of all the time I have left in taking action, and I don't get anyone else in the pipeline. Right. So it's super important to keep action here. And then you go to maintenance. Maintenance is your follow-up. Deliver on the promises that you made. Right. Get ready for the follow-up appointment that there may be. The easiest tool to help with this is going to be your draft folder in Gmail. Because 95% of your follow-up after you talk to someone is how. I mean, like, if they ask you for information or you're going to follow up with them, so it's going to be an email, right? So I'm going to start that email to John. I'm going to say, wanted some information on Profield, send them blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to delete it because it'll get save and draft, and I'm going to go on to the next one. And then when I get to maintenance, I'm going to pull up my draft folder. It's going to have 22 unsent drafts, and I'm going to start hammering them out, right? Again, this is how so we talk about systematizing your business. This is a way to do it, right? So you make sure you compartmentalize on there. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So let's go specifically open houses, page 8. Before you look at the page, whoops. When does an open house start? If you're going to do an open house this weekend, when do you start the open house process? Today, right? I'm so glad that we finally put this in writing, like the best way to start an open house. Today, find the open house. I'm just going to go through this. Select the open house location and time. volunteer to host an open house for someone in your market center. Okay, here's the challenge. If you send out an email to the market center, or if you post on Facebook that says, I'm interested in holding an open house this weekend, is that a super effective way to find a house to hold open if you don't have one?
No.
It's not. Agents are busy. They're probably not going to see it, or by the time they see it, you've already found something, or it'll be tomorrow. If I wanted to find an open house today to host, what's the best way to do it? Correct. Go find a house.
Identify a neighborhood you want to.
Yes.
Whether it's your neighborhood or identify a neighborhood that you want to gain market share, be intentional about it.
Yes.
Find an agent that has a listing.
Yes.
Ask them, they're gonna say yes. If you're gonna, the one thing that I do encourage new agents to spend money on are customized open house sites that have your little face on them. Get a minimum of 10, plaster that neighborhood with your signs. It doesn't matter whose sign is in front of the house. If your neighbors see your 10 signs 4 times a month, they're gonna think that you are the neighborhood expert. They will have no idea that it's not even your listing. In a month, you will have gained market share in a neighborhood.
You just leveraged listings without having listings. So on page 102 of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, it gives you every reason you need to know as to why you should focus on listings. Alicia just gave an example of a way you can leverage listings without already having them. That's phenomenal. You've just done 90% of the work and you didn't even have to do the hard work. It's an amazing thought process.
One of the things, going back to what Alicia said, be on purpose on it, the location wise, what neighborhood do you want to be in, what price point do you want to be in? Okay, now on your list for Monday, when you pick your open house, I want you to put on your checklist to confirm that the listing agent and seller will still allow the open house if they go under contract. Because the worst thing to do right now is you don't set that expectation. You go under contract on Thursday after you've done all this week of marketing, and they're like, well, hey, we don't want to have the open house this weekend. So you want to make sure you set that expectation. There's nothing wrong with having an open house with a home that's gone under contract. Like, we're in a market where someone comes in, you tell them that, manage the disappointment, it won't be that bad. The percentage of people who actually buy the house that they went to the open house for is very small, right? But don't get in the habit of just canceling because it went under contract. So you want to set that expectation early on, because the open house itself is just the action. Your preparation and maintenance is the huge part of it. All right. So again, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, these are all different things that you can do. There's some samples in here. We're going to kind of go through them fairly quickly and add some stuff in here just in the interest of time. Online, call list, call 25 neighbors. Let's talk about that. What's the script for calling your 25 neighbors?
For an open house?
Yeah.
We were having an open house. I'd love to get your feedback. We love neighbors.
Okay.
Hey guys, having an open house down the street, reaching out because we find that most homes that we sell are to friends and families, individuals that live in the same neighborhood, just can't find the right house. If you guys want to come by and take a look, see if they match up for either somebody you may know or you guys will visit.
Awesome. Love that. What else? It's a good script. What else? What else could you do to get people there?
You guys got a Yeti cooler and raffling off to come out.
Okay. Always good. Giveaway is always good. What else? What's something that you have that in this market right now people want to know?
The price of their home.
Other lists of homes that they need for sale.
One of the things that we did that really changed the effectiveness of open houses was we changed open house to a market update at the open house we're having this weekend. So I called around the neighbors, say, hey, we're doing a market update at 123 Main Saturday from 12 to 3. I know it's probably a busy day, but if you're driving in or out of the neighborhood, you want to stop by, love to share the information about what's going on here in Crowfield. Is that something you'd be interested in? 2 answers. Yes or no, right? Awesome. Let me know what time you think you'll stop by. I'll be on the lookout for you. Or no, you use the same follow-up that you would use for yes, but you just go right to it. Or no, it's like, awesome. No problem. We have that digitally. What's the best email address for you? And I can send it to you so you'll have the information. Now you've gotten their email. If by the way, this is a door knocking script as well. So again, anything you can do, but put on here, change your. I think they have one of the samples that have like a guest speaker. Also good. You know, I've got so-and-so from so-and-so mortgage. You can have all these, or keep it simple. Have you be the expert and just offer market information. right? There's another thing on there, they say is, on Thursday, they say invite your database.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that when you hear invite your database. Who in your database, by the way, are you gonna be inviting to your open house?
Any of them all.
Right, but if you're gonna call them, who are you gonna call?
My 8 players.
Okay,
We're gonna find 0 to 30 days.
okay, so yeah, your leads. What about your Met group? Like we talk about needing a way to follow up with our Mets. Could you invite your Mets to your open house? For the most part, do your Mets want to come visit you at an open house?
No.
No, so what's a script you can use for them?
Want to get you started in the process, see what it looks like to view houses, might as well view one with me, come take a look at it, let's see what you like, what you don't.
Okay, good for buyer leads, but if they just purchased a house, they're not looking to buy or sell. What's another way? What's gonna get on there?
Who do you know that might want to live in the neighborhood?
Okay, also, what else? Just said,
Market update.
market update. It's the same thing, right? Don't overcomplicate. It all goes back to this market update. Now, you've got a database of 300 people. Who are you calling this week to invite to that open house? Of Mets, not buyer leads or seller leads, not leads. Who in your database should you be calling that week?
Probably people I've spoken to recently in the last couple of weeks, just keep that fire stuff.
Yeah.
Core
Who else?
advocates.
Core advocates, keep it simple. Whoever was scheduled for you to call that week in your database. Right? If you're putting together a smart plan, right, and whatever your smart plan is, and this will make more sense, but in your smart plan, it will be, hey, you're gonna contact via phone everyone in your database at least 4 times a year. The biggest challenge we have on that is, what do I say? 4 times a year. What if this time you said, hey, touching base, we haven't spoken in a while, we're gonna let you know I'm doing a market update at Crowfield this weekend. Now, if you know them well enough, you're like, I understand living in West Ashley, you're probably not gonna be driving by, but I thought of you and thought, hey, I'm putting this information together for the open house. I'd be happy to send it to you. Again, you now have a message that you're sending to everyone. You're not having to tailor the message so specifically. You can organically tweak it when you're having the conversation. Right, but now you have it. You have this open house market update, whatever you want to call it, that applies to everyone. Okay, door knocking, again, same thing. Couple pro tips. Like one of the things that we would do is if we were going to door knock, we door knock close to the house out. If you look at it, we'd start here and go out as much as we can. Be realistic. You're not going to door knock 20 to 30 homes for an open house. Like you may get, if you get a hold of people, you may get 10 to 20. Don't set this expectation to go out and be door knocking, 50 plus homes, right? But we would start here and move out. And then if we were circle prospecting via phone, we'd start further out and move in, right? Just as a side note, voicemails left about this market update got more people to our open houses, second only to buyers that were interested in it. People would stop by and be like, I got your message. Sounds awesome. I'd love to get some information from you. Again, it's all about building it, feeding it, and communicating with it. Make sense? So
In that conversation, all you're doing is creating curiosity or casting doubt. And that's sales, right? Create curiosity, cast doubt. So in this particular situation, we're just creating curiosity about the value of their home. They want to know, most homeowners want to know how much their home is worth. That's why, by the way, the Zestimate on Zillow was created. Legitimately, that's why Rich Barton and the creators of Zillow created the Zestimate. It's why it's such a huge feature and why it's talked about. Whether it works or doesn't matter. They go there to look at it, right? You can give them better knowledge by having them come to your market update using the same concept, curiosity. Does that make sense?
yeah. What else about open houses? Anybody want to add anything?
What's a better day to do an open house?
Good question.
Or does it matter?
It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. It's the day that you're going to focus on the most. I mean, I honestly used to schedule mine around Lynn's schedule. So if she was showing property on Saturday, I'd do mine on Saturday, vice versa. If I didn't have a preference, quite frankly, I would do Sunday because I was already dressed for church. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to church and I'm going to go do the open house afterwards. The problem is, my problem with open houses is so my routine when I first got this, but honestly for the first 4 or 5 years, is open houses, and during open houses I prospect visits instead of appointments. The aha on that was I was able to set a lot of appointments during my open house because no one was coming.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
So I go flying into the open house at like 1:05, throw all the lights on, put cookies in the oven, so it would, you know, smell great. I put the race on, bounce my checkbook, and start calling Fitzos. And then I realized nobody's coming to these. So I started doing everything building up to that, so I didn't have time to prospect on there.
So it's more about the marketing of the open house,
100%.
right? Driving people to the open house.
I will say, I've done a good amount of open houses, and at least for me, if you can, one day's great, whatever, but if you can do that house for 2 to 3 days, you'll see more people come because you'll leave your open house signs out and it just kind of.
Yeah.
Each day I see more people.
And that's part of your strategy too in picking your open houses.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, pick your open houses. It's not a terrible idea to find neighborhoods who aren't as strict on your directionals, right? I don't see any purpose of holding an open house in a gated community. Because very rarely, it's not easy to get into. If the sellers want it, then that was, I would argue, poor expectations set on the listing agents in. That being said, if you want to have one, but I mean, it's minimal turns off of the main road, and then it's easily accessible as possible.
And a decently cute house, not a whole.
Yeah.
Well, correct.
Yeah.
You might want to entertain too, some, you know, during the week, we had a couple of listings in Avondale for a while. We had an investor who was doing flips, and we would do them from 4 to 6 in the afternoons, and you'd have a couple, you know.
I heard like a
direction-
carpool pickup line right
Yeah, just-
outside of the
just know
school
your-
is a good idea.
Yeah,
too.
know the traffic patterns, know it's across from the school and people are sitting in carpool lane. If you're in kind of a hip neighborhood like Avondale or Park Circle, do a happy hour one, like
Yeah.
just know,
Yeah.
get familiar with where you're gonna hold an open house. And Joseph, I did the same thing for years. I was doing them just so I can get stuff done. And then I realized the value of my time and it's like, why am I wasting all
Yeah,
of this
terrible.
time? So,
And intention.
yeah.
Yeah.
But see, the intention of the open house,
Sunday, so I'm like, man, I can waste time.
the intention of the open house is to get leads.
4 hours a piece.
Yeah.
And I realized that
Oh,
wasn't
I would lose
necessarily
my mind.
the
Yeah.
way to do it. It was, if I'm going to do it, you market it on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you do a grand open house, don't let anybody in for the weekend, and you do it for 2 hours.
2 hours. is
Everybody
enough.
knows ahead of time, and in that 2 hours, you are just jam packed with people coming in, and when they're done, you're out. And it's writing contracts and following. up with
That
everybody
middle
for the rest of the
hour
day.
is always empty. The first hour you got it, the last hour you got it. So it's-
Here's the other thing
down
is,
to
you know,
2 is good.
the big thing is, kind of going to jump to page 10, just to catch up a little bit. Promote your open house. We talked about build rapport with guests and establish relationships, qualify leads by asking probing questions, provide value. You know, at the bottom it says enter prospects into your database as contacts or leads. Well, in order to enter in your database, you have to have what?
And check the assignment.
Right, a sign in. So let's talk about that. Who has success with sign-ins? Who's been challenged with that before?
I have success just asking everybody to sign it. The sellers require.
Okay.
Everybody walking in and one of those.
Okay. So again, which way of these works? The one that works, but there are a couple different ways to do it. So I want to make sure you have it. So Duncan's approach is right when they come in, seller requires it. What are some other ways?
I say, I have one that says, hey, the seller really wants feedback, good, bad, or ugly, and you just wait here until they take it from your hand, because they will take it from your hand.
Yep, and have them sign in
And
on
I'd
that.
say, I mean, almost everybody
I think
signs in
huge,
there
yeah.
too.
I heard a lot of huge success on that. One thing that worked, again, for me, and I've heard work for a lot of people as well, is not asking them as soon as they walk in the door.
Yeah,
Right, so what we did, as soon as they walk in the door, we had everything, you know, 95% of times at Charleston, you open the door, it's formal living, formal dining. Have them go whatever directions away from all the material. And just build rapport. Because again, people are behaving based on their most recent experience in that situation. And trust me, if you ever want to entertain yourself, go secret shop an open house for agents. Their behavior is fascinating. I was a team leader, I used to go visit agents doing open house with competitors, and it was amusing. It's like, oh, and if you come in here, you'll see that this is a half bath, and in here they have, if you look right over here, and it's like you're in a half, there's too much, too much. Like I
They follow
joke,
them
but
around
they
like
do
little
it.
puppy
It's
dogs.
crazy. And so immediately what I would do is say, hey, welcome to the open house, Joseph Keller Williams. I'm sure you know what half baths and toilets are, so I'm not going to follow you around and point everything out. I'll be here if you have questions. Now I'm present. Don't just let some stranger go wandering through the house, right? And then ask questions, build a rapport. For me, that was a huge way to increase the sign. If you ask right away and it works, do that, right? If you provide the feedback one, I think is a brilliant one because then you get the feedback.
And my form literally outlines that so that it's geared towards that, but it still also asks the questions that I actually want.
Right.
Like, are you working with an agent?
Right. Exactly. All right, anything else on open houses? All right, so where does all of this show up, by the way? Your open house. Like where does this most importantly show up in the general overview of your business?
Your LG.
When?
I don't know if I know what you're asking.
When does this all show up? When do you start to see the results of all this?
Depends on your follow-up.
Correct. It's in your follow-up, right? It's the next week, right? There are some things we could do a mastermind on. We used to provide these open house, we call them VIP home buyer tour. And we have it titled, we sit and buy all the information, we have huge letters, the Saltmarsh Properties VIP home buyer tour. Ooh, what's that? Right? It's like, well, no, people now use the app, right? Again, when I did it, I think we had to draw it out. It basically is a list of all the homes that were active that may fit your criteria because this one did it, right? Here's the address, drive by, I've done it too. Call me if you want to go see them, I can get you it. Right? I gave out hundreds of those. I can count on one hand how many times they actually called that afternoon to see it. Typically they were busy or I couldn't get a showing. All of that shows up though, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week when you're following up with everyone you talk to. Because they're talking to a lot of people that weekend, right? If they're going around open houses. So if you do all this work and you don't follow up, there's a colossal waste of time.
Lead generation is you have two points, right? Number one, you're picking up stones, you're turning them over to see who wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate right now. That is a numbers game. It's just swinging the bat a bunch of times. Eventually you're going to hit the ball. Very low probability though, right? That's just luck. On the other hand though, you're literally picking up rocks, turning them over to find people that you'll have the opportunity to follow up with later. That's the key. It takes time, and that's that cultivation piece. You just want to create relationships to build and feed the database and then have the opportunity to communicate with them later. And through the communication is when you're going to understand their motivation and what they want when they want it. And then you just execute on that last part. Does that make sense? It's a numbers game. And we keep going back to that. It's that easy. It's like that simple, rather. The reason it's difficult is because you have to do it consistently every day, and it's terribly boring and monotonous. Welcome to success.
Yeah. Yeah. It sucks. It's like over and over, like mega camp. If you'll see it virtually, I can promise you at some point, the point will be made to these agents that are selling thousands of homes a year. At some point will be made. I'm doing this because I got comfortable with the mundane and the boring. Right? We're succeeding at this level because I got comfortable with the mundane and boring. Now, it doesn't mean 8 hours a day of it, right? It could, right? But this is talking about this part. Okay, so jump to page 14. We're going to start wrapping this up a little bit. Page 14 basically is, let's start creating our prospecting plan. So on page 14, it says pick 3 lead generation methods from the list on page 4. So you either have the ones you know that you're going to do, or if you don't, go to page 4 and pick 3. Who's got their 3? Okay, so below it, you've got the section to write the 3 that you have there, the pros and cons of each. Jot down a couple pros, a couple cons of each. All right, so out of those, pick one that you're going to focus on first. basically you've written your pros and cons. What's one you're gonna focus on first? Now, if you've got your plan in place, this part may not pertain. On the next page, page 15. You're just gonna write at the top under part C, what is the one that you picked that you're gonna be focused on the most in these next 2 weeks? Because again, the foundation, regardless of what you pick, this is the model you're following. Right? If it's open houses, if it's FSBOs, door knocking, you're feeding it from those sources. What's the one that you're gonna put on there?
Sphere.
Your sphere. And what I want you to do before you leave today, if you have time, after Delisha wraps up, I don't want to take any more of her time that we're kind of still into now, is fill out the rest of page 15. What are the resources that you need? Right? Because once you identify that, if you don't know where to go, we can get you that resource ASAP. It's more than likely going to be covered in the next 2 weeks, but in the event that it's not, we'll make sure that we cover it for you. Your time frame, your target, and the rest of the questions on there.
You might not even know the resources that you need. Have the question as what's stopping me from doing it. Right. And then we'll figure out what resources you need based on what's stopping you from doing it. And the answer might be you. That's okay. That's cool. Let's be real about it.
Yeah. All right, give you a couple more seconds to, if you haven't, pick your final one. One last point to make, and then we'll get some ahas and Delisha.
Huh? You're gonna make a point right now?
Yeah.
Oh boy. We were talking about prepare, action, maintain. He's really good at preparing.
Yeah. All right. All right, the big thing that we don't talk about enough in the business is time on task over time. Because what happens is we leave here, you leave this class, right? And you start putting, you're gonna build all these models, you're gonna build all these systems, all these habits, and you're gonna leave and you're gonna expect, and this could be time versus money, right? That's a clock, that's a dollar sign, right? And you leave here and you expect your first 90 days are gonna look like this. And here's what it's really gonna look like. This. And it will eventually do that. The problem is this no man's land right here, when you get out 30, 60, 90 days and you're like, this isn't working. Right? And right when you decide to say, hey, well, John's doing FSBOs, he seems to be doing really well now. I've been doing open houses. I'm going to stop here and I'm going to do FSBOs. The problem is you've now gone back and you get on this 90-day cycle where you just about to hit it, right? Just about to hit it. June of 2014, a guy by the name of Micah Utt joined this office. We sat down and we went through a business plan and he picked his database. He went out, he picked vendors that he knew and he went after them. And every day he was actually in the office right on the side of there. I was in there, I'd hear him. Every day he'd come in, he'd make phone calls, he'd write notes. He'd start laughing because his notes were stupid. Like he'd write everything. He started making up like e-cards, the funny ones. And he literally sent out a bunch of them and said, because you, he told a joke and said, because I made you laugh, you'll know I'm a good realtor. Stupid stuff, but he was signing his name. He was putting it out there. He loved it. Okay, December of 14, he comes in, he's closed 8. His goal, by the way, was 36. So first of all, first 6 months, 8 closings, not too shabby. It's really not. But if your goal's 36, what are you thinking? I'm behind. This is not working. I want to be here. I'm here. Right? So he looked, he said, all these people are doing this. So-and-so's doing this. So-and-so's doing that. So let's look at their production first. They haven't closed 8. So that was an aha. Just stick with it. Okay. June of 15, he closed 33. It was rookie of the year for the region. Again, he didn't do anything fancy. He went in, he built his database, fed it every day. He got married in April, by the way. He was a little distracted by that. If your goal's 36 and you hit 33, are you going to be okay with that? No. Well, some people won't. You'll be fine with, you'll be okay with 33 though.
Be pretty angry, actually.
Right. 33, not too terrible. Anyway, time on task every time. 3 ahas and we'll get out of here. Or Delisha will.
Beats talent every time as well.
Every time.
Time on task, overtime beats talent every time.
So Micah used to be a neighbor of mine. He doesn't know that, but I used to get his postcards in the mail. And I always remembered him, and that was before I started doing real estate. And so he's the reason I started farming, and I got my first listing.
Wow.
So definitely fun little things
Yeah.
that he would send in the mail that made me remember him.
Yeah. He'd die laughing. I mean, and by the way, the kid, I mean, he had a great life. He didn't work. He had self-control over the weekends. Like he had time with his wife, you know, he crushed it, but he had a balance. So that aha is make sure when you tell a story, it's true, because some of the only thing over the
Yeah.
person. He didn't do that. All right, 3 ahas.
I'm just thinking to be back in the room, kind of rejuvenating, trying to rebuild my habits. Exactly what this class is all about.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. What else?
I think starting to put a foundation of habits into play.
Yeah.
For sure. I like the idea of learning what an open house is and kind of what it entails now.
Mhm.
Because that's really what I want to kind of focus on and start really learning that. So that's definitely one of my main prospecting ideas. So I think that's good, kind of to see it into place right there for sure.
One more.
I think for me, a lot of it is, I think probably for anybody that's starting up brand new, like, you sign on, meet Kristen, and all of a sudden it's just like your inbox is filled with 1,000 emails. And I'm just like, holy shit.
By the way, don't buy any of that crap.
Oh, yeah,
And they really send you a lot of emails to buy crap.
Yeah, it's
Don't buy-
overwhelming.
You don't need anything.
So I think doing, having this, like, it puts a lot of like, I've been in sales forever, and a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is like, oh, no, dumb shit, you already know all this.
Right.
But it's like, it cuts away all of that overwhelming stuff. that you
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
Just be like, all right.
That's the hardest part, man. I'm telling you, that the hardest part is narrowing it down. That's why we do the exercises. Let's pick one. Now stick to that one. Like you wrote it down, stick to that one. They all work. They all work. So, all right, Talisha, anything else you want to add before you come up here?
It's nice to have y'all in person.
It's nice to have you all in person.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, love it.
Oh, I'm just never home before.
Okay.
Yeah, I just, yeah.
Chad, what do you want to do this?
You can leave it up, I guess. Oh, yeah, leave it. So it'll.
Does everyone have their central lock? Or does everyone have the ability to schedule and view at home? Yes.
I finished the course, so I'm going back to the.
Okay. So,
Just finished the course, yeah. I just got the stuff like that last night. Yeah.
okay. Do y'all know? Well, I guess I can pull up MLS. Do you know, for those of you that do have your logins, do you know how to pull up an MLS listing, where the showing time icon is?
Nope, would love to learn. Or privately, yeah.
Also, download the Showing Time app, download Century Lock RE or Century Key RE, and download Flex MLS. Those are the 3 apps we need. Showing Time.
And is that part of Kristen's orientation?
I don't think
No.
we got that. Flex
We didn't
MLS
get that.
showing time and what?
Flex MLS
Century.
Pro, Century Key RE, and Showing Time.
It's in all the stuff they'll send you. They'll tell
Gotcha.
you what to download and show you how to do it and all that stuff. They were a little, like,